Hi,
reverse,
Mangat.
reverse aging. As with every
नहीं
passing
वो I
time,
thought
right? You younger and
Mangat
younger and
Mangat
younger.
Mangat is very fond of doing focal lasers.
We are live.
Okay, we are
Well, I
live.
think we should start.
Well, all the old timers have
We
gone
are
through
live,
that
sir.
stage.
We are live.
I welcome everybody to this AIO Scientific Committee webinar. And this is one of its kind because we are starting a series of which machine is the best. The first one has been planned very well by Dr. Piyush Bansal under the chairmanship of Dr. Lalit Verma, and we have a galaxy of speakers. We don't have a sponsor for this webinar because we absolutely wanted to be neutral and not be influenced by any company or any sponsor. And I'm sure all the speakers who are here are going to threadbare, dissect, and educate everybody about which machine is the best. So first of the module is in vitro retina, and thank you, Piyush, for thinking about it and also for getting everybody on board and for organizing this. So over to Dr. Lalit Verma, sir, first for his epilogue.
No, I think we will. Thank you, Namrata, for. I think we'll not waste time because there are 8 speakers, and I don't know whether we'll finish in time. We should finish Piyush in time, but I must congratulate Namrata for thinking about this, and congratulate Piyush for putting up a very nice program. After a long time, something meaningful is happening. You see something meaningful which is of practical relevance. Machine to buy, ultimately, I'm sure all the speakers will put in the best kind of, job that what is the best. But I just want, after having told what is the best, I think we should also tell what are the bare essentials which they should have. Rather than the best, everybody may not get the best. Everybody is not Anand Rajendran or Namrata Sharma that their hospital will have the best. But often in corporates or once you're in solo practice or even a small group, you may not be able to buy the best. So therefore I thought I will tell in the beginning that at least bare essentials should be told. So that once you build up your practice, have big name, you keep something in reserve every year, keep buying, keep investing, and then ROI is justified because everybody who invests, they keep looking for ROIs also. And I know better than only who will know the best on this, aspect. But we'll get going. But theoretically, there are so many factors involved in purchasing, like finance, ROI, solo, group, corporate, government setup. So therefore, I thought all the speakers should, or maybe panelists also, whenever we talk, what are the bare essentials in those machine which should be to begin with? Because the topic which Namrata has said is which machine is right for me once you're starting a practice or upgrading your practice. So with these words, I think I'll hand over to Piyush to moderate.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, and thank you, ma'am. A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I welcome you all to this unique series of webinar. Now, the reason behind this was, of course, because a lot of the youngsters, not just the youngsters, but even experienced ophthalmic practitioners as well as institutions, when they make purchases, sometimes it's a daunting task to be able to decide which machine you would want to invest in. So again, this is a humble attempt to kind of compare between a few popular and commonly available machines to us today. The idea is to discuss the pros and cons and compare because every machine will have its own, advantages as well as disadvantages. So to kind of fit into your particular practice, which one would be right for you. So with this, I thank Professor Namrata Madam and Professor Lalit Verma sir, and we'll move on to the expert panel. We have a exciting panel with over 250 years of combined experience. If you look at the entire panel over here, with Dr. Pramod Bhende sir from Sankar Netralaya, Dr. Vatsal Parekh from Mumbai, Professor N.S. Muralidhar from Bengaluru, from RIK, Anand Rajendra from Chennai, from Arvind Eye Care System, Dr. Shobhit Chawla from Lucknow, Dr. Rajan Narayanan from L.V. Prasad Eye Institute, Professor Mangat Dogra from Chandigarh, and Dr. Prashant Agnihotri. So again, we will be starting with 12 minutes talks on 8 topics, and we will be going back to our expert panel for a 3-minute expert comment on each of these talks. So with this, this session will be co-moderated by Professor Gopal Pillai, who's the head and professor at AIIMS Kochi, along with me. So with this, we begin with the first speaker, which is I invite Dr. Ramesh Venkatesh, who is a senior consultant at Nara Nethralaya in Bengaluru, to speak on OCT machines.
Thank you,
Let's
Piyush.
stick to time. Let us stick to time, and all others, please keep muted, please.
Yeah. Are my slides visible?
Yes, RB.
Yeah. So thank you, AIOSSC, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, Piyush, and thank you, Dr. Namrata and Dr. Lalit Verma, for this interesting webinar. So the topic which I'm going to talk is which machine is right for me, but I'll be talking on which OCT machine is right for me. I'll start this presentation with two situations. There is a hospital one, which caters to more than 1,000 patients a day, where 50% of the patients are diagnosed and treated for cataract. And we usually send these patients for macular OCT scans to the retina department. We wanted to reduce the patient movement time, and therefore we wanted to procure a new OCT machine for the cataract department and not for the retina department. The second situation is another hospital where we have around 150 to 180 patients per day being seen, educated and sophisticated patient crowd, with 8 to 10% of patients being diagnosed with macular pathologies. They already had an existing OCT device which was 10 years old, and they had received a donation of around 75 lakhs recently. So they wanted to upgrade their retinal imaging system to cater the needs of this population, and they wished to procure another OCT machine in the retina department. So with these two clinical situations, or with these two situations which we come across very frequently with the management, we'll just talk about how to choose the best OCT machine for these situations. So the agenda of this program is to understand the process and understanding what is required, and then comparing the different OCT machines between the thing. So when you look at this word puzzle, what you can see that there are some important words which come out into this, and that includes OCT, the practice, the management, the funds, the ROI or the return of investment, the ophthalmologist, the patient, technician, the company, the machine, image tools, data. Many words they come into when you are discussing which machine to be bought. Now, let's start with assessing the need for procuring an OCT machine, and the procurement or the need to buy an OCT machine. The reasons would be different for different individuals. Now, let's look at a cataract surgeon or an anterior segment surgeon where he wants to buy an OCT machine basically for screening of macular pathologies and for prognosticating the anterior segment surgeries and completing his investigative process. Whereas for a posterior segment surgeon, it's going to be mainly for diagnosing, treatment, monitoring, and prognosticating those macular pathologies, and also to look into the research purpose of that imaging system. For glaucoma specialists, it's going to be the same for diagnosing and treatment of glaucoma cases. But for the organization, it is both where you look into the availability of funds and also for technological advancement. Now, this practice is the most important. So when you choose or when you decide, you also look into that kind of practice or the kind of setup you have. And these setups can be varying right from an individual private practitioner, like what Lalit Verma said, to a private group practice, corporate eye centers, charitable eye hospitals, ophthalmic eye institutes, and government hospitals or regional institutes of ophthalmology. It also depends on the location where you're practicing, right from a tier 1 city to a rural area. And you also need to understand the patient profile and the patient characteristics which come to your hospital, whether what is the patient footfall, what is the educational background, what is the paying capacity of the patient, and what is the intention to spend on eye care. And the most important, what is the proportion of patients requiring anterior segment surgeries or being diagnosed with posterior segment pathologies. The organization and its management. This is another important aspect where you really need to look into, where every hospital has a vision and mission which actually talks about quality eye care. So there is no organization or no institution or no clinic which will not say that I don't want to give a quality eye care. Everyone wants to give a quality eye care. But in addition, everyone wants to then differentiate whether they want to give a premium eye care or an affordable or a charitable eye care. And that is where you decide what kind of machines you really require to cater to the needs of those patients. Then we need to look at the availability of the funds, whether the funding or the financial resources are self-generated through the patients, or whether it's to donor funding, government funding, or even research funding. The most important thing we always talk about when we have or when we're planning to buy any new machine is the return on investment. And you understand that the time taken to achieve the return of investment should always be less than the useful life of the equipment. And when we try to calculate the return of investment, there are 4 important parameters which we need to understand. That is the cost of the equipment, the revenue generated by the use of the equipment, the operating cost, that is the cost which is required to run that equipment. And that is what gives us this return of investment thing. Now, the way the ophthalmologist uses the machine, that is also equally important. For an anterior segment surgeon, he's going to primarily use it for a screening purpose, whereas for a VR surgeon or for a glaucoma person, it's going to be for the diagnosis and for treatment purpose, and also for technological advancement and research purposes. Now, the type of purchase, and this will decide what kind of purchase you want to have, whether you want to buy the machine or you want to rent a machine, and whether you want to have a new machine or you want to have a refurbished machine. Now, let's come to the most important thing, that is choosing the right machine. And this will depend on, let's understand what are the commercially available machines which are available in the market today. And most of these machines are basically which are being produced or manufactured by outside the country. And the most commonly used ones, I'm going to describe the most commonly used ones. This is the spectral domain Cirrus 6000, which is being done by the Zeiss, where it has a high resolution imaging. It has a retinal analysis tool. It has a wide field imaging capability with OCT angiography, and it has got also a robust software for glaucoma and retinal disease management. And I'll be talking about the price for most of these machines, and I've inquired about the prices, and the price for a Cirrus 6000 would vary somewhere between 65 lakhs to 75 lakh rupees. Now, let's talk about the Spectralis or the Heidelberg, which is one of the high-end OCT machines in our center, where you basically are using it for color fundus photographies. You're using the pseudo-color imaging, and in addition, you're using the OCT and the OCT angiography module. In addition, it also gives us the enhanced depth imaging to visualize the choroid, and it also gives a lot of automated measurements in the form of area measurement tool, and also having calipers which will measure the height of the macular thickness. The price for this machine is around 80 to 90 lakhs, and one of the most frequently purchased machine is the Heidelberg Spectralis, which is produced from Germany. The another machine which is being actually marketed by the Healthscape, My Healthscape, is the Opto Revo FC machine, which has got an integrated fundus camera, and it has got an AI-powered diagnostic support system, and it is a very user-friendly design, and the price is quite economical, somewhere ranging between 40 to 50 lakhs. Now, let's look at the Japanese version, or the Nidec RS3000 Advanced 2, which has got high-speed scanning with a spectral domain OCT system. It uses the confocal scanning laser ophthalmoscope for the visualization of the retina. It has got wide field imaging capabilities, and it can also have analytical softwares for glaucoma and macular pathologies. And it's available for a price of around 55 to 65 lakhs. Now, let's look at the indigenous ones, which we have as well. So this is being manufactured, the Appaswamy Sienna, which is our indigenous make, which uses, it's a simple OCT machine, which basically caters to the need of all ophthalmologists. It provides high quality images, and it's an extremely user-friendly interface. It provides both the glaucoma analysis and the nerve fiber analysis, and it has got an excellent control software for image acquisition, processing, and having a good patient database storage system. And when you have an additional optical adapter, you can also do an anterior segment OCT image. The cost is very economical. Now, it is this is something which I love, saying that the cost is only around 20 to 25 lakh rupees. And I spoke to one of the engineers today from Appaswamy who said that the cost is 22 lakh rupees. Now, let's look at the Swepsos OCTs, where you have the Topcon Triton multimodal Swepsos OCT model, where it uses the longer wavelength light, which provides the deeper penetration and faster scanning. It provides the wide field scanning of up to 12 millimeter by 9 millimeters. It has an integrated OCT angiography system, and because it is an high-speed imaging with real-time tracking, the cost is around 75 to 85 lakh rupees. This is one of the machines which people have recently gone behind, started looking for, is the Mirante system, which is from the Nidec, a Japanese company, and where it has got a multimodal integrated imaging system where it combines the use of OCT angiography, and color fundus photography, and you can have color fundus photography of different types. It uses the ultra-wide scanning system of up to 63 degrees. The basic or the minimum is around 90 degrees or 89 degrees of field of view. There is a high resolution imaging which provides a detailed ultrastructural or microstructural assessment, and the autofluorescence which it has is it has got the blue wavelength and the green wavelength autofluorescence, and it comes for a whopping price of around 95 lakhs to around 1.3 crores depending on the configuration which you choose. Now let's look at also another ultra wide field, the OCT imaging system, which is based on the swept source, which is the Zeiss OCT machine, which is provides imaging of the choroidal and retinal imaging. It has high speed imaging, and because of the longer wavelength, it has got a deeper penetration. It uses the OCT angiography functionality as well, and it is basically comes again for a very high price of 1.25 to 1.5 crores. Now, in addition to knowing the different kinds of commercially available OCT machines, you also need to understand what is the device consideration and the brand considerations. And these are some basic characteristics, like what Dr. Lalit said, that we should know that the basic thing or the bare minimum that any ophthalmologist should know, that any OCT machine which we purchase should have a least patient discomfort. It should have a faster scan acquisition time. It should provide a superior image quality. The repeatability should be very high. It can have additional features like automated measurements, enhanced depth imaging, and integrated devices with other multimodal imaging facilities. And it should have a space and integration with the existing hospital systems so that it can easily be integrated into your existing practice. Now, for the company, what you need to know is that the origin of the company, because that will decide who the dealers for are for our country and what kind of maintenance and support system they provide. And also, it's important to have a knowledge about the reputation and the reviews of that particular company and the machine. There are some additional considerations which we need to understand is the technological advancements which we made, the ability to scan through small pupil, a good or an easy user experience and training facilities, space and integration, the data management and the storage should be very easy. And for us, in being in a very high number of high level tertiary institute, we also look into the number of licenses which are being provided by the company. Now, in addition, you really need to look into the technical considerations, and there are 6 very important parameters which I believe that every ophthalmologist should know while purchasing the OCT machine. That is the scan resolution. So you have the 2 types of scan resolution, where you have the vertical resolution, where it is the ability to distinguish between 2 points along the z-axis, and it basically talks about the depth detail, and you have the horizontal resolution, which talks about the surface details. Then you need to know about the A scans per second, which the machine can take. And you need to understand the higher the A scans per second, you have faster imaging acquisition, you have less motion artifacts and less imaging details and higher identification of unnecessary details as well. So this is how the time domain was 400 A scans per second, and the spectral domain, which can range from around 20K to 85K A scans per second, and the swept source, which is around more than 100,000 A scans per second. Then you need to know the scan patterns which are available, the single line, the raster scans, the radial and the macular cube. This is a single line scan. This is useful in patients with poor fixation and specific area of interest. This is the radial scans. This is the wide angle radial scan, which is being
we'll have to quickly wind up.
Yeah, I'll finish it. And this is the enhanced depth imaging. You also need to know the scan depth, and that depends upon the wavelength of the light and the tissue type which is there, the signal strength, because the higher signal strength, it provides a better image quality and less noise, and the field of view which the scans can be taken into. So these are the differences which are available. There are comparisons between the different OCT devices, and which tells us that the Plexilite and the Spectralis are equally comparable, and even the Mirante and the Spectralis is comparable between the two. So my recommended commercially available OCT devices would be the Spectralis, the Mirante, the Triton DRI OCT, the Zeiss Plexilite, and even the Apaswami, especially because of its economic economic considerations. The refurbished machines, you need to understand that there are sources from where you procure it, the warranties, the service and support, and the calibration and testing, which has to go for, especially for the refurbished machines. These machines are around 30 to 40% less than normal. So there is a very simple formula when you're procuring an OCT machine, the define the needs, the consult the stakeholders, assess the budget, evaluate the options, calculate the ROIs, and then primarily make a decision. So in our first situation, we basically wanted a machine which is for faster acquisition, which can achieve a ROI, and therefore we bought this Spectralis machine in the first situation for the cataract department. And in the second situation, where we wanted to have a state-of-art equipment and we had a good amount of funding, we bought the Mirante in the second situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you very much, Ramesh. It was really a wonderful talk. You can stop sharing. Yeah. So OCT is a very ubiquitous machine. I would very much like to ask a couple of brief comments from our August panel. Dr. Vatsal Parikh, please, sir.
I don't see Dr. Vatsal there right now. Perhaps anyone.
Vatsal was there.
Okay.
Vatsal did join. Vatsal was there.
We'll take one comment. So any one of the expert panels, would you like to make any comment?
I can just go
Pramod is talking. Pramod is talking, I think.
So
Yeah.
I mean, I think
Can
it's
you- can you
excellent
hear me?
presentation, and he has covered so many things. But problem is with that, audience get confused. There's so much of information he has added on. I really appreciate and congratulate him that so much of hard work he has done. Just a couple of things to add is, most important is what we also need to look at it, and it is universally applicable after sales service for any one of us. When you buy a machine, you need to have a support, very, very important. Second thing is integrated machines are good, but integrated machines probably good for a smaller setup where you can have space constraint and all those things. But when you are looking at a larger setup, if you have integrated machine and you have a large crowd to push, you better to have a separate machine so that you can keep patients moving. Otherwise, you have difficulty. Everybody is waiting for the same machine and machine is occupied. Okay? And all these machines, you have to, it's not like a same protocol parameter will work out. You have to set up a reference point and protocol for each machine. So get familiar with your machine, whichever you are using.
If I could add one quick comment. Another one parameter that can be looked at is to see if certain machines are upgradable. For example, in the Spectralis itself, you have a wide range. He briefly mentioned upon that. So see if you're investing in a lower end or mid-range Spectralis device, see if it can be upgraded as part of your contract or as part of the machine. Other things he also mentioned for a high volume setup, it's also important to see whether you can get a good number of licenses. Number two, whether it's integrates with your EMR platform, or if there is a viewing platform, because you might have multiple stations or settings, and whether this is accessible at different points. Yeah,
I think that's very important. You have to have integration between the two different machines, and probably then only you can integrate your data. So that
can I make a point, please, if possible?
Yes, please go ahead, Uni.
Yeah, so one thing I've learned from bitter experience is that when you want to buy a machine like an OCT and a new one has come, you cannot listen to anybody's comments. You have to go to a place which is using a machine and actually use the machine. Some of these things are not suited to your clinical. If you have doctors, sometimes you'll have optometrists taking in and they simply cannot do a proper tracking and a proper image acquisition because it takes too much time for image acquisition. So whenever you have to take a machine and it is crossing these huge amounts, astronomical amounts, it is always good to go visit a place which has it, if possible. Sit in front of the machine for at least 10-15 minutes and see, is it going to suit your practice from the image acquisition point of view also.
Very important points, all these, Piyush. Oh, excellent points. You see, I would say in a low volume setup, you have to have, but OCT is a must in all setups, whether in TS segment, posterior segment. That is one statement I wanted, that everybody should have OCT today, because even for TS segment surgeons, it's required, because otherwise a lot of visual surprises occurs. And secondly, if you have a large volume setup, then I personally think, what Ramesh was saying, I would suggest you have one low-end machine for screening, diagnostic, so that everything is not, on Mirante or Heidelberg or this thing. one low volume so that, all cataract surgery can be done. But one will be on, especially for posterior segment and glaucoma, where diagnostic, monitoring, research, all these things can be done. Because you have to spend a lot of time on OCT and Octa.
Thank you very much for those wonderful points. There are a lot of questions in YouTube. I think we will not have time to take each one of them. Ramesh, if you can kindly look into the YouTube and answer those questions, it will be nice. And I would like to invite Dr. Vinod Agarwal from RP Center to look into different types of OCT angiographies. So OCT angiography now has moved and tried to revolutionize our practice, our insights into the pathophysiology of diseases. Over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So I'll be speaking about Octa. I think Ramesh beautifully highlighted most of the points which one would consider buying any machine. While we talk about Octa, since it is most commonly the part of the same OCT machine, so very much has been covered by Ramesh. I'll continue on few other points which are specific to Octa. So we know that Octa has been growing in our day-to-day practice, especially in the specialized retina practices. And I think in today's scenario, the most important use of Octa is in identifying the CNVMs, which are in relatively difficult scenarios. For example, type 1 CNVMs, the pachychoroid spectrums, where it may be difficult to recognize CNVMs, especially with the FA and OCT alone. Conditions like MACTEL2 or other conditions where there are secondary CNVMs, it may be difficult to identify CNVM just with the FFA or OCT. Octa may be useful in these conditions. And of course, our use of Octa has been growing in venous occlusions and other vascular disorders, including diabetic retinopathy. Certain new things have been found in uvea using Octa. And the most important benefit of Octa is that it provides us depth resolve depiction of the retinal vasculature. Now, what would be an ideal Octa machine? So ideal Octa machine would be one which gives us aura to aura view. Unfortunately, it's not possible in today's scenario. See, the highest view, the largest view in today's scenario is given by Interlight, which is kind of new company, not many installations, at least in India. It's Dream OCT, and the one by Canon. And again, it is not approved by FDA, but these two machines give the highest, that is 23 into 23 millimeter of retinal view. The one which gives us more A scans, so that the machine uses less fill-in data, and actually we get the vascular patterns. So more A scans are again available in swept source machines as compared to spectral domain machines. And again, Interlight wins here because it provides us around 400,000 A scans per second. Higher depth of resolution would be required, the one which goes up to deeper in the choroid. And again, swept source OCT wins here. And there are few which are swept source based. Remember, Triton Plus by Topcon, Plex Elite by Zeiss, and Interlight by Interlight Dream OCT. So these are three swept source OCTs. Most of other swept OCTs, Octas, which are available in market are based on spectral domain technology. It should allow quick capture. Why it is important? Because many of these patients have poor fixation. At times they have nystagmus, and sometimes these patients tend to be uncooperative. So I think in our personal experience, we have been using around four machines. I would say Optopole, Spectralis, Zeiss 6000, and Triton Plus. And out of these, I think Zeiss does the best work to capture the Octa images quickly. It should have a very efficient movement tracking, so that there are minimum artifacts. And I think Spectralis wins here. These are all my personal, you can say, experiences. There are no definitive studies on this, but I feel Spectralis gives you a much better movement tracking as compared to other machines. Then there are certain minor considerations like least artifacts. It should be easy to handle, and the viewing platform and various things which you do with the scans should be easy, and one which allows the manual segmentation. Now, before I go to which machine should you buy, so I would want to know whether does Okta suffice in all our patients? And the answer would be no. So we need to do so many other things like color photos, autofluorescence, angiographies, and other kind of reflectance imagings. Now, one thing very important is we already discussed about how different kind of setups require different machines. But I feel in today's scenario, it is not good when patient moves from one machine to another, and that creates a lot of confusion. So one would like to have a machine where you can do all the imaging modalities in a single machine that is more comfortable to the patient, and it also saves the time. So few of the machines which offer multimodal imaging are Spectralis by Heidelberg, Mirante by Nidec, and Topcon by Triton Plus by Topcon. Now, a few other machines, for example, OptoView, Avanti, and Optopol, the one Ramesh mentioned, FC Revo. So these are the two machines which have optional imaging of color photos along with them, but there are no other modalities like FFA, dye angiographies, and autofluorescence. And then Zeiss is a very good machine, but the most important issue with it is that it comes as a standalone OCT and Okta, and there's no option of color photos or other fundus imaging modalities. So these are the various machines. Ramesh already showed them. Most of them have OCT and inbuilt Okta. So the machine one would choose would depend on so many factors. But if we consider Okta alone, so my question would be, what if you choose a wrong one? For example, if you are a patient with CNVM and you image this patient on different machines, are you going to miss the diagnosis of CNVM? So answer is no. So are you going to miss a vascular occlusion? Again, the answer is going to be no. So how would you choose a machine then? So the machine would be chosen based on what are your budgetary considerations. What is your type and volume of practice? We are one of the highest volume practitioners, and at any point of time, we have all these three machines working by different, you can say, technicians, and all of them we have been using for past 10 to 15 years, and they work wonderfully well without many issues. And this is despite having multiple user over different days. Another important factor would be how are the after sales and services of that particular machine. So you buy a machine, it might look very good, but if the after sales and services are poor, if the repairs are very costly, that is one again prohibitory factor for buying a particular machine. So as I mentioned, in our experience, we have been using these three machines very regularly. Triton Plus by Topcon, it uses a swept source technology. It's both OCT and Okta are extremely good. It gives widest view of around 12 into 12 mm. However, quality of color photo, autofluorescence, and FA tends to decline over a period of time, though the OCT and Okta images remain very good. Series 5000 as well as 6000 is a very good machine, but I feel I always, whenever there is a confusion, I like to have Okta either on Spectralis or on Topcon. At least with 5000 and 6000, Okta images are not as great, though it gives us a faster acquisition, as I mentioned earlier. The most important problem is that there is no color photo along with it, but it is a very, very sturdy machine. Each machine in our center does around 50 to 70 OCTs a day, and they are very sturdy in spite of uses by different personnel. Spectralis again is very, very good. I feel it is in fact the best multimodal imaging platform. However, cost is a prohibitory factor. And another good thing about this machine is CSLO based technology, which gives excellent contrast when using this any kind of images. So of late, Mirante has been there in the market. We have had it for a very short time. We felt that the quality of FA and ICG was not as great as that of Spectralis. So we never bought it, but going by what I have heard, it is a great machine again. So to conclude, if we compare in terms of clinical differences, most of the currently available machines which are there commercially, their clinical differences are not significant. Most of them give us a fair amount, idea of retinal pathology. But what I feel is you should look for what else the machine offers. We need to see what kind of budget we have and what type of practice we are using it in. And of course, one would like to have a machine which is very durable and the parent company provides good after sales. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Vinod, for this fantastic and lucid presentation. There are very few people in the country or institutions rather that can boast of so many machines, and I believe you have access to six different OCT angiographies from various companies. So you've presented all the facts very nicely. We would like to take comments, perhaps, or expert statements from from the panel. Perhaps Dr. Anand Rajendran can.
Yeah, first of all, fantastic talk, Vinod. Very succinctly put everything together. I think the first thing to understand is that OCT angiography is not as critical an equipment as OCT. We just heard from Ramesh, and OCT is ubiquitous, as Dr. Lalit said. So, whereas OCT angiography is still partly in the domain of research, as well as partly we want to cut back on dye-based angiography. So we are trying to push the envelope with the OCT angiography. Now, as he's mentioned, I won't go back into everything. I agree with all that he said. I think one thing which you need to look at is which machine gives you the least number of artifacts. So because this is the machine where it's a moving ball game, it's very algorithm dependent. It's more algorithm dependent than your OCT. So here it's an interpretation of a moving RBC based on the mathematical equation that is put out there by each machine. So I think importantly, he's mentioned all that. I personally love the Spectralis. We do not have access to Plex Elite. Dr. Pramod can come in there. And so I think it's great. SLO gives us great contrast. And it's also pretty sturdy. We thought the Cirrus 6000 would give us great angiography, but it's great angiography for retinal pathology. I don't see it being that great for choroidal pathology or CNBM or sub-RP pathology. So I just like to put that, throw that in also. I agree with all that you said.
Thank you so much, sir. Can everybody just mute themselves?
I think I would like to just add one thing. The best octa we get with the Angioplex Plexelite, but the problem is the machine they are no more making, and it's a problem. So nothing to beat that. I think when we were using it, angiography came down remarkably. Very few were done. But as mentioned by Anand, 6,000 doesn't give that good a imaging, and we are back to square one and doing more of angiography. So that is, of course, it gives fantastic OCT. And we have had an experience in my institution earlier with Triton. I think it works very well. It's a workhorse. It can give fairly good this thing, and is something which gives also you a fundus picture. So this is something but nothing to beat. I have no financial interest, but machine is not even available. But I had a good fortune of using it in the practice outside for almost 4 years.
Thank you for your comments, sir. There is one question from YouTube which asks for the best octa that you would think a beginner would perhaps should buy. So I'm guessing that it's going to they're looking for something that does most of the job. They're not looking for something spectacular, perhaps which should be in their reach in terms of the budget as well.
I think most of the machines do well. I'm not very particularly aware about the cost, but I think OptoView as well as the OptoPol, they are on the lower end of the spectrum, and by and large, most of the machines offer similar things. I agree with Dr. Dogra sir that Plex Elite gave excellent images, but it is not commercially available. That is the problem with the machine Plex Elite. But most of the machines give fairly good idea of the pathology. And I guess whatever budget suits you and considering other factors, any machine is good, I think.
Piyush, budget is a very important consideration. Whosoever has asked this question, to begin with, I think OptoView is good enough. But as you go higher up in practice, I agree with the initial comment made by Anand that out of all the 8, talks and speakers we have, Okta comes way down. Okta does not come in once you are beginning a practice. It's not a
That's
must
exactly the
also.
question
It's
I
more
had
of,
in
yeah.
mind.
I think one very good way to look into it, if your eco environment of the practice is primary or specialized retina practice, and there are budget constraints, you could start with a modular system like Heidelberg, take what is necessary in the beginning, and then you have the option of adding on. So we were lucky we got the full Spectralis because at that time it was not that expensive and had the fortune of changing it also. And then in a dedicated setup,
Shobit, can we say, because the question is, your problem is you have to guide people what to buy. I don't think there is any one answer, depends on budget.
Yeah, exactly.
To begin with,
and also the eco environment of the practice. What is the practice exactly like?
I think that comment was made in the beginning itself, that everything depends on where. If you have more than 150 retina patients per day, there's a different setup. If you have 5, 10, if you're an RP center, then you see all the answers are so variable. But on an average, I think what Vinod said, for an average, this thing, OptoView to begin with may be good, but ultimately, this Topcon and Mirante may do a wonderful job later on.
I would again echo what Anand said in the beginning, like, the OCTA is not such a critical thing like OCT.
Yeah.
So the question is, if somebody is a beginner, do you really want to spend money on the OCTA to start off?
No.
That's something you have to really think about.
No, Murli, no. Answer is no. I think this Vinod also said, Anand also said.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I would
I
like to
think
echo the same.
for want of time, let us move on to the next talk. So, and there are a lot of questions on YouTube coming in. Please wait till the end. We will take some of the questions in the end.
So with this, we move on to the next talk. I invite Dr. Manavi Sindal to please load her presentation. Dr. Manavi is the professor and head. She heads the retina services at Arvind Eye Care System in Pondicherry. And she will be
Piyush, instead of we discussing, I think it's better to give respect to the audience, and two questions on YouTube we should take every time.
Yes, sir.
Manavi, are we muted? We are not hearing you.
Manavi, you're muted. Dr. Manavi, yes.
Yes. I just unmuted myself. I'm sorry. There was a small.
We can't see the slides yet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are they visible now?
Yes, they're visible.
So I shall be throwing some light on the use of the different retinal lasers that are available in the market. We have a wide array of lasers. So let's look at some of the points that would help us. So there are various wavelengths available in the lasers. We have the green wavelength that's 532 nanometer. This is one of the most commonly used lasers in which the double frequency Nd:YAG is the commonest used. It's absorbed by hemoglobin and melanin. The red, which can be krypton, or more commonly available is a diode 810 nanometer. The absorption is by melanin, so there's a deeper penetration to the RP, and this makes it a preferred laser either for ROP or diode CPC. And because of it being near infrared, it is invisible, so it's kind of more comfortable for the patient also, as there's less glare. And the yellow laser, which is a more newer of the lasers and is maybe limited in use actually in clinical practice because people don't have it. It's an excellent absorption by melanin and oxyhemoglobin, and it has very little absorption by the macular xanthophyll pigment. So it is an excellent penetration through cataract and hazy media. So it's very good for lasers very near the macula for the micropulse, which we will take about eventually. Then you have to look at what kind of the laser delivery systems. Of course, you have the slit lamp, which is the most commonly used method. You have control over the power, spot size, and accuracy and exposure more accurately. Can do almost all lasers except for extremely peripheral barrage laser, and is mandatory for doing a focal laser. The laser indirect ophthalmoscope delivery system, this is preferential when you have hazy media, when you want to do lasers through vitreous hemorrhage, or when you need to barrage peripheral lesions. The spot size would depend upon the lens that you're using and the refraction of the eye. And of course, it cannot do focal lasers. And If you are also having an operative setup, then you need to consider the applicability for use it intraoperatively for doing endolaser photocoagulation. Lasers also come in various delivery patterns. You have the conventional single spot and then you have multi-spot. The multi-spot is beneficial in that you can do a larger area of treatment more easily. The less heat diffusion in the retina causes less damage to the nerve fiber layer. It's also more comfortable for the patients. And you have the micropulse or the subthreshold laser. In this, during one laser shot, there are micro pulses of laser where you have an on phase and an off phase, which allows the reduction of the heat generated. And this limits the damage to the retina, and it just causes a stimulation effect of the RP, and it's good for diabetic macular edema, for CSR leaks, and for RVO-related macular edema. So the various lasers which are available is one is the Zeiss Visualase Green, which comes into most the classic, which is monospot, and the comfort, which can be upgraded to a multi-spot. It can come with a single or a double port for both LIO and slit lamp to be connected simultaneously, and you don't need to keep changing it. And the console is quite compact and portable. In fact, this is an image of an older console. The newer console is even more compact with the display incorporated into it, so it can be ported to if you're visiting a different center, or to get the same console can be used in your OPD and taken to your OT when you need it. And it can also be available in a combination of the retinal and the anterior segment slit lamp YAG laser, which can be beneficial for a practice which looks at both VR and cataract. The approximate price would be around 36 lakhs for the slit lamp only model and 41 lakhs for the one with the LIO, and an AMC of around 40,000 per year. The Iridex or the Oculite TX, this is available in all the three wavelengths, the green, the yellow, and the diode. The green and the yellow are available as single spot, multi-spot, and micropulse. The diode is available either as an LIO or endolaser. The console is very lightweight, very portable. This also comes as double port or single port. And the price varies from around 35 lakhs to 43 lakhs for the slit lamp only, and the LIO from about 43 lakhs to 48 lakhs, and about 45,000 AMC. The Pascal laser, the Pascal comes in a green and a yellow model, both. It is table mounted, so it's not portable. It comes mainly with the slit lamp attachment, which has the pattern generated console, and the multi-spot laser, which is excellent for doing laser very rapidly. It comes with endpoint management. It comes with micropulse also. So the micropulse can be used for lasering CSR leaks, which are very near to the fovea, or using micropulse to sweep up across the macula when you have as an additional treatment to DME. It is very good for practices where you have to deal with a large volume of patients, and so it helps you to do laser much faster, since you can cover larger areas and the treatment takes less time. It has excellent optics, so you can also do a lot of barrages also, even though it's a slit lamp laser, except for maybe extreme periphery, or where you have a pseudophakic eye where the peripheral barrage may not be possible. In fact, our fellows love doing most of it there. They would do the posterior part of the barrage on this and only shift the patient to the LIO for just the anterior bit of the barrage. Yes, it is an pricey machine, with the slit lamp alone variant costing 85 lakhs and with the LIO 96 and an AMC of 55,000 per year. The Alcon Pure Point is another laser which is usually sold most often along with their constellation vitrectomy system, wherein you can buy the tabletop model and the Alcon Pure Point separately. This is also a very compact and light module. It is easily portable, can be shifted from your OPD to your OT. It comes with 2 ports, so you can have the 2 devices connected. Of course, it comes only with LIO or endo laser. And it has radio frequency identification, so it can easily identify which device is collected. And the foot pedal has customizable switches on the side. So as you're doing laser on the foot switch itself, you can change your power very easily. And it's portable. A slit lamp delivery doesn't come per se with it, but you can have it with a separate slit lamp and adapter. And it costs around 24 lakhs with a CMC of around 2 lakhs. Appasamy has the Amog Smart. It's a single spot and multi-spot, comes with both slit lamp and LIO. Some particular models of their laser are fixed to the console, but others are portable and can be shifted around. This, of course, as most of Pasami products, is very pocket friendly and comes with slit lamp version for 15 lakhs and the LIO for 17.5 lakhs. There are some other machines like Quantel Easy Red. It is an exclusive yellow laser and has a fiber optic technology, comes in single, multi-spot and sub-threshold. The console is fixed to the unit and it's not portable. The slit lamp version costs 55 and the LIO version 62 with an AMC of 55,000. Aeon Muster multi-spot laser is another one which is quite popular. And it also is a 532 nanometer laser with a pattern scan and also has a foot switch pedal power control. And with the LIO, the price is around 22 lakhs. And the mono ray, which is the single spot and very portable model, it costs around 17 lakhs. The Aurolab also has a single spot laser which can have slit lamp adapter and LIO, and is portable and can be used everywhere. It's costing around 14 or 18 lakhs with a 60,000 AMC. Of course, with lasers, you need accessories like your laser lenses, a uninterrupted power supply, and the laser protective glasses for the attenders or for your staff who's going to be in the OPD with you, in the room with you. So if you look at a hierarchy of systems, probably at the top would be some kind of a combination model where you can do both retina and anterior segment laser. For large practice, a multi-spot laser is useful. Micropulse delivery is also useful, especially if you're going to have a practice where you're going to be dealing with a lot of CSRs, want to do, and with no PDT available in India, to be able to do laser for those subfoveal leaks, and also as an add-on treatment for diabetic retinopathy patients. Of course, portable laser has its own advantages. You can have one unit, you can use it in your OPD, you can use it in your OT. You can take it to any different center or periphery that you are visiting. So this is a layout of the basic cost that I could gather from my sources. Disclaimer is that these are just approximate costs. Remember to, like it has been said, negotiate the cost before you can finalize. I do not claim that these are the actual prices. And again, as everybody has said, look at what is your practice, what is your turnover, whether do you need it to carry your laser for remote use to another tender, or are you going to take it for doing ROP laser? Do you need to do focal lasers? Service and maintenance and the CMC or the AMC that the company is offering. Service varies for different companies from region to region. People in different parts of the country have different experiences with service. And some things like, especially if you're having a large practice, a double port may be useful where your LIO and this are both simultaneously connected. And of course, budgeting your entire cost into the picture. Thank you. And I would like to acknowledge all the alumni of Retina alumni from Pondicherry who gave me a lot of input. Since I am institution based, but they have gone out and worked in many places. I got a lot of good inputs from them, and Dr. Nagesha, who also shared a lot of information. Thank you,
Dr. Manavi. Now, before we move on to the questions by Dr. Gopal from YouTube, just a quick comment in addition to what Dr. Manavi just mentioned, that the costs are that she has given an approximation. Now, this is with regards to this talk as well as the previous talks. Everyone, please remember many times these costs are highly negotiable. So do not take this at face value. You can negotiate more with the companies, and there can be a substantial difference in the costs that are being mentioned right now and the actual cost that many of us have purchased them for. So Gopal, Doctor, over to you.
Yeah, Anand has raised his hand. So please, Anand. No, Abhishek has raised his hand. Okay. Abhishek?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Just a couple of things that I wanted to mention. Whenever you are buying a laser, the one thing that you should know is that if you're going to be using slit lamps quite frequently, then prefer to buy integrated slit lamp laser. The link is not always the ideal one. It does. I mean, it's not very
Can Piyush, the external noise be muted? There's a lot of noise coming.
Right. And the second thing that I wanted to point out was that, in some of the Indian machines, what we have seen is that the actual power delivered versus the power that you have targeted is not, it does not have a linear function. Sometimes even at lower powers, high powers get delivered. So during macular laser, this can be a bit of a complication. The accuracy of these machines is not absolutely great. So that is something that also you should have in mind, because see, this is unlike a diagnostic device. This is a therapeutic device where a mistake can cost dearly. Thank you.
Okay, there are a couple of questions from the YouTube, so I would just join them. One is regarding sub-threshold laser and should we have it in our armamentorium? And the other one is a very interesting question. Durability in terms of a multi-spot laser versus a single spot laser. We've always had the single spot laser, which has been a workhorse to do PRPs, but it makes a lot more easier to do multi-spot. But is it more durable as well? Is it a workhorse which can stay with time?
I can answer this question. All the multi-spot won't last that long. That is what our experience was in the institution. But the single spot, they are workhorse. Of course, it takes more effort and more time, but they would last absolutely for a long time. And another thing which I would like to say, have a laser which can work everywhere, which can, suppose you can afford only one laser and you want to do everything on the slit lamp, LIO, ROP, you want to carry it and laser barrage, everything. I think any 532 laser you buy, it will do everything. And that is something I think I would like to emphasize here, because we have had great difficulty procuring, especially lasers, especially separate for ROP in the, I'm sure Pramod knows that, how difficult it was. But have one laser which can be a workhorse and it will work for all. Even in the theater, endo laser you can do with the same. If you have a smaller practice, of course, if you have large volume, then you need to work differently.
There is a question on Navilas. What is the current status of Navilas? Anybody is using Navilas? Anybody in the August panel is using Navilas? No, I think no.
I think it was for demonstration again in our center. I think we didn't like it much. I think there's sometimes
LVP
I think
had it.
Charlie
LVP
did
had
present
it.
on that.
Raja might be able to give some.
Yeah, LVP had, I think there were some project going on actually in LVP. That's what I remember. Dr. Raja can answer that question.
We had it. It was pretty useful, I would say, but it's very expensive, very, very expensive. But very useful for lasers close to the foveal center. CSR leaks you really want very close, because obviously it has a very high accuracy and you can just mark on the machine where it needs to deliver and it will deliver exactly there. But it's very expensive, not available here in India. But in general, I have comments like if I have probably 30 seconds, I'll just mention very nice presentations by everyone. And in fact, most of the comments have been covered. But I would say that as of today, we are close to a tipping point in terms of the device manufacturing, pricing, and local innovation in India. I feel so far we have been paying very high price to the foreign-made products. They for lack of availability in India. But similar to what the anti-VEGF market is going through, soon we will be having a shift. They are all very profitable equipment. You can invest in OCT and make money out of it. I mean, you can make easily, even if you are just seeing 10 patients a day, OCTs, you can break even in 5-6 months, and after that it's all only returns after that. The only thing for me personally, even though we are in an institution, the biggest headache or heartburn which happens is the downtime. And Dr. Pramod Bende mentioned that if your service, your representative is not taking care of you, I think that's the only thing which matters. Other than that, whatever machines we are having right now, all of them pretty much are giving good results for a routine clinical practice, but never compromise on their service. It is a multifactorial thing, service, but never compromise on that.
Thank you, Raja. Let's move ahead. Abhishek will now speak to us on vitrectomy. So again, another workhorse which requires to be there. If there is a downtime, we are done. So over to you, Abhishek.
Just a second. We'll first go ahead with the operating microscope. so that the sequence is maintained.
Okay. Sorry, Abhishek. Yeah. So let's go for operating microscope.
Dr. Manoj Saswade from Aurangabad. Sir, can you load your presentation, sir?
Yes, yes. Is it visible there?
Not yet, sir.
Not yet, not yet.
Manoj was there.
Yes, yes, yes.
No. Manoj is trying to share his presentation, sir.
Perfect, sir. It's starting to share, but we can't see the presentation yet.
We are seeing your screen actually. You can just open your presentation.
Busy man, so many presentations.
Not easy.
Dr. Manoj has a very busy private practice in Chhatrapati Shivaji Sambhaji Nagar, that is erstwhile Aurangabad, and with vast experience with many machines.
Why it is paused?
So does our next speaker, which is Dr. Abhishek Kothari, who's probably worked on more operating microscopes and vitrectomy machines than a lot of us. So, Dr. Abhishek, we would love your comment on operating microscopes after Dr. Manoj finishes his talk.
It is not coming. I don't know.
So perhaps should we then go to the next talk and we come back to you?
Yes, yes, let's.
Okay, Dr. Abhishek, can you stop screen sharing, sir? Dr. Manoj?
Stop sharing.
Or you can finish fundus and camera, because then the rest of the 4 talks are viewing system, microscope, recording system, everything related to the OT.
I think that's a good idea, sir. Dr. Uneep, can we go ahead with yours first?
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, so I was just making it to the last minute. Okay.
If you need some time, then we can always go back to
yeah. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So, I mean, thank you for the invite to the talk. So I'm going to talk about another equipment in the OPD, that is the fundus camera or the fluorescent angiography. So this is what it's like, something we all agree upon. Is it essential? Yes. But everybody who's asked me for an opinion, or they say if they wanted to cut a machine from the initial purchase, it would probably be the fundus camera. So that's actually it's a point, because those who want to buy it are worried about the cost and the ROI. So I've just put a few slides about that. So know your practice. Are you a single person medical retina practice? Are you a person with an OT? Are you a freelance surgeon? This has been covered. And I have put a last called HWCP, which I will explain to you in some time. And this is a pathological classification of the type of people. Let's divide it M0, M1, M2, M3. That is no medical retina, casual medical retina, and more than cataract. M2 is equal importance from a medical retina income, and M3 is a focused medical retina practice. Similarly, S0, S1, S2, S3, no surgical retina to a focused surgical retina practice. And the last one is KFGHB. So I'll just talk about the things. That is, some people, the KFGHB is that kya fark girta hai, from whichever machine it is. So that is not what we are discussing today. We're trying to derive differences between the machine. And HWCP is husband-wife combined practice, where the wife is the decision maker, and therefore it doesn't matter what your choice is. So when you start a practice, you have to find out the need to grade. Are you a single? Obviously, you know what practice it is. How important is your medical retina going to be? How important is your surgical retina going to be? You have to plan your capital layout, evaluate your ROI. It's been talked about many times. So I've got this slide about ROI. The machine can be preferable or essential. It can be low ROI and high ROI. If it is, preferable, if it is essential and high ROI, it's an easy decision. If it's a low ROI and it is not essential, it's also an easy decision. But you need to have a considered decision. If it is a preferable equipment, but not essential, and it has an ROI, high return of investment. But sometimes you have to buy a machine which is essential for you, even though you know that it's not going to give you practice. And that is where your practice comes into importance. Whether you are a core medical retina person or you are or you need to, you're a core surgical with a partial medical retina interest. So let me put it, if you're a single man practice and you're a M1, that is your casual medical retina and more of cataract, you can treat based on clinical examination OCT, you may not need a fundus camera. But if you are getting a real income from your medical retina and you want to treat properly, then you probably need a fundus documentation and an FA without an ICG. You can hold on to the ICG. But if you're a focused medical retina practitioner, I would recommend that you have an FA and an ICG and bracket, if possible, an ultra wide field if you're very focused about it. But that is later. At the initial stage, you could do with an FA ICG. And if you have an OT or you're a freelancer, the same thing. The S1 and S2, that is casual and significant income from surgical retina, it all depends on how good your medical retina practice is, not your surgical retina, how you're going to invest on a fundus camera. But you need the fundus camera for documentation as your surgical retina practice increases, and you need, it's important. The focused surgical retina, I would probably move on to saying that you need a wide field or an ultra wide field. So with this background, we'll go to the next one. If you're group practice, you need, and you have cross consultations, you need to document your plan of action, medical legal safeguard, you need a fundus camera. So let's start by saying the non-mydriatic cameras are good for posterior pole screening, group practices, institutions with large OPDs where you need to screen the posterior pole and know what is happening. So some of the cameras in this group are the Trinetra camera. So some of these slides are company given slides. There's no other option but to take. So there are small cameras which take a little space. You can do a non-mydriatic screening. I would like to say that properly. It's a screening. They are not fabulous images. There are adequate images. And these are the techniques. It's a 45-degree field of view with a very low resolution camera. You can see this. This is adequate to say disease yes, disease no. To screen in an OPD, so that there is a place for these things. So if you are starting in a medical in a practice and you want documentation, but not exactly angiography, these are good cameras to start with. And another one is the FOP, the fundus and foam by Remedio. You have a portable small device which is not going to burn your pocket, and you can use it to screen and pathology, mainly posterior pole pathology, keep a record of it for future treatment, for review treatment and follow-up treatment. It's handheld. Some of the Remedio, they claim to have excellent AI for diabetic retinopathy screening, excellent, they're starting into AI for AMD screening also. Not very significant in a vitreoretina practice, but these are some of the things they are focusing. Then let's look at some digital cameras with angiographic abilities. That is, you have the ability to document, you have the ability to do fluorescent angiography. But in this current era, our dependence on fluorescent angiography has actually come down with the OCT. You actually can treat DME, CNVMs, VRVs, even PDRs without angiographic evidence. So that is a point you have to keep. You can, that's all dependent on how strong or robust your medical retina practice you think it is going to be. You can start without if you are not that concentrating on it. So the Canon is one of the good cameras in that side. It has photographic and autofluorescence, but it's limited at that. Then as you go to the next one, you have combined OCT and fundus photography. As mentioned, some of the machines are the Topcon and which has the combined. You can take a anti-segment, the Optopol Revo, the retinal scan duo from Nidec. So all of these are cameras in which you can get a limited fundus photograph, OCT, and an autofluorescence. And let's go to cameras which have full angiographic capacity. That is, let's call the Claris 700 and the Iden. So the Claris is from Zeiss, obviously. It is a true color, it has a 133-degree field, and a stitched or a steered image can get you up to 200 or 267 degrees. The images are very nice, and it maintains the quality of images throughout the zooming effect, which are good things about these high-end, slightly higher-end cameras. And you can see they give you angiography. It currently does not have ICG, but you can get beautiful pictures with fundus photography, autofluorescence, and angiography. So you can see these are company images. And this is the Iden. This is one of the machines I have, and I'm in love with it. What you see on one side is an auto stitch. It's very fast in taking central images, and you get an auto stitch. There's an ultra wide field lens also, which helps you expand. So here you get color photos, you get autofluorescence, and you can get an angiography of a wide program. See, I just want to, this is a sequence of my images. You can see in a wide variety of images, you can see that's a localized BRVO with a subretinal fluid. It's a retinoblastoma inside, full retinal detachment, a uveitic patient, CRAO patient, choroidal osteoma, disc edema. So let's repeat it. A lipemia retinalis. This is a buccal eye with a very high buccal effect. A commercial retina, a PDR which is not exactly stable, bled, long-standing lasered, a GRT coming up, and a CNVM. So you have a wide variety of cases where you can use document, and it's pretty important if you have a surgical and a medical retina for documentation purposes. Now let's go to the cameras with full multimodality. That is, you have the NIDEC, which has been mentioned. I'm just going to mention the Heidelberg, which has got a platform. You can escalate the things that you have in it with the autofluorescence, with the angiographic module, with the multicolor module. Just about the color, this is not exactly a color. It's not a true color. It's called a multicolor, but it has its advantage. Here you can see an area of geographic atrophy, which is well. So there are different. We've got new insights into clinical pictures by these. They give more relevant images. Visualization of NV is better because of the multicolor aspect. Looking at epiretinal membranes and striae, picking up cuticular drusen. So they've got different things, but this is one of the strengths of the Heidelberg. I would say it is very beautiful images for dynamic angiography. These are some of the best images you can see for dynamic angiography. This is a CNVM in a mactal patient, so you can see how beautiful the images comes up. And again, these are the you can compare the different types, the autofluorescence, all the images which are very sincere to each other. That's how I'd say. You can do simultaneous ICG and angiography also. This is another patient with a polyp in which you can see the polypoidal lesions coming up clearly. So this is one of the best things about the machine is the dynamic angiography, which is very useful. So another new machine that has come up is called the Apollo MicroClear. It's a Chinese company, but the images seem to be extremely nice. They have recently come up, this is a true color. They've recently come up with an RGB color, which is close to the retinal, regular retina. So these are some of the images that they have provided with macular holes. This, you can get a stitched image up to 180 degrees with this for wide diseases. When you want to go for upgradation, this is what I want to say. The upgradation is not a starting point. The heading was also upgradation. Is why do you need ultra wide field? The whole imaging of diabetic retinopathy is going, even DME is going, where you want to see what is happening in the periphery. Any vascular retinopathy, RVO, you want to know what is happening in the periphery. Uveitis, preoperative, if you're a retinal surgeon who wants to document his cases, the ultra wide field is going to be the thing we are going to come to. Is good for fast OPD screening and picking up disease. So it's both extents, screening in the OPD till the very end, pre-surgical evaluation. So I'm just going to show some images where you see the optos. You can see a surgical case where the thing, you can see a normal retina. Angiographically, you can pick out extreme peripheral leakages. You can pick out neovascularization and ischemia in the periphery. And all these, this is what I would say, even in a regular diabetic retinopathy, ultra wide field is now going to come back, and we will be doing ultra wide field angiography for most of our cases in the future. So if you look at all these images, this is a BRVO image where you can see neovascularization, a whole HCRVO where a lot of valuable information is coming in. So I'm just going to skip a few of these slides and we'll just go to these are beautiful slides. So let's look at the price points. The Trinetra and the Remedio is for a starting practice. You can get away with, let's say, an under 5 lakh budget. It will help you screen in the OPD, document your medical retina cases. So I would say, even if you're not planning a full-scale angiography unit, if you're starting your own practice, this should be the minimum. The ability to document your cases should be there. I would recommend that you should have one of the lower-end cameras to start your practice with. When you upgrade, you can always use them as a portable camera later. If you want just fundus photography with high resolution, you can go, and non-mediatic, you can go for the Canons. But after that, you have a slight gradation where you can start from 25 lakhs and go up to 2 crores. So that is where your ROI, whether you have a rich and exclusive boss who wants to have the best equipment, whether you're investing for all those things come into being. Eventually, when you get better and better at your work, all of us, I would say in the next 3 to 5 years, we would be looking intensely at ultra wide field, because the studies, the information, everything, it is going to be essential in a couple of years' time, but maybe not now. So we understand the requirements of each type of practice. We understand the usage of the machines. There's a careful evaluation of the price point and evaluate. All these have been said. And these two have also been said. You look at your service and service policies and your maintenance costs. Thank you so much for the listening, and I hope some of the points have been clarified.
Absolutely, Dr. Oni, marvelous presentation, like always. Now, there was a question by a young surgeon, Dr. Pranav. Now, I think his question is pertinent to a lot of young retinal consultants and practitioners who would want a camera, that is going to give them decent images, and with an angiography, with a fluorescein angiography capability, and perhaps an ICG angiography capability as well. So, if you have to give him a suggestion, which one would it be?
So if you're a starting surgeon and you want an FA and an ICG, the one you put in is decent images. So that's a bit of a problem. If you want good images, you'll have to pay for it. But the point is, what I'm trying to say is that you can recover money from a camera in an ethical way, not an unethical way. You can recover money from a camera in an ethical way. So there's no thing. See, we have cameras starting from 25. If you're going for the Apollo Micro Clear, the basic photography FA and would be around 25. You can get an IDEN for 40 to 45 is what I believe. This is don't quote me on this, and I don't want the company coming down on my head, but this is roughly the price that all of them have sent to me in the last couple of days. But from 25 to 45. So if you're a starting surgeon, you want to have something, but you still want angiography this way. But there are some equipment you have to consider that they're going to last. They're not going to change. For operating microscope, you buy a good one, it's going to be with you for the next 10 to 15 years. You buy a good OCT, I guarantee you the model is going to change. You buy a fundus camera, it is going to last, because it's doing the same thing again and again and again and again. So spending some money on a good fundus camera might not be a bad.
When would you want to invest on a RGB multi-color camera rather than a usual fundus camera? What do you think about that?
Perhaps this question can be taken by one of the expert panels. And I would request anybody who's not speaking to please mute themselves so that we don't have interference. Just to rephrase Dr. Gopal's question, it was from YouTube. Any of the expert panels, how would you compare true color wide field imaging with the RGB ones?
Well, I'm using both. I'm using the Heidelberg and the Claris. I find the Claris gives the true color images and they are far more useful. RGB is good, but only for very specific indications. I feel for a beginning practice, a true color works better.
Can I take that question also? See the true color is what we get with artificial lasers. The RGB is or the Optos has come with the RGB. From the RG, it has gone to the RGB to come to as close to true color as possible. The Apollo Micro Clear, the RGB gives you near true color. That is, they come closer. They're coming closer and closer to our analog color combinations. The true color is actually, it goes away, but they have certain benefits in identifying certain pathology. But like Sir said, we want to see all the companies are coming and adding 3 color or 4 color lasers to come as close to natural color as possible. So, and that is why the latest California, they come with California RGB. the latest micro clear, they come with micro clear RGB, so that visually you don't see a difference. But the advantage is there. You cut off a wavelength, you cut off blue, suddenly you see surface diseases better. You cut off the green, you see deeper diseases better. So there are advantages in having a multi-component scanning laser system also, if you have the time to use it.
Yeah, so I agree with that. I think both points are well taken. Sometimes the settings change. You are not aware. And what looks to be a bright red color, a blood in a true color, will appear dark red on an RGB, and you may get carried away. In fact, during a class, it was mentioned this is subretinal blood because it's dark in color. But if you look carefully, it's pre-retinal hemorrhage. So we need to be careful. Both have advantage, disadvantage. But one thing which we have lost in all this innovation is a camera which can now look at the macula with high resolution. We have run on for wide field and ultra wide field so much that I am finding it difficult. A good camera for a macular pathology, like the workhorse Zeiss used to be there, FF450, good 20-degree photograph, that is missing right now. That if someone can have a camera which can take good macular pathology, and along with that, if you want to change the lens and go for wide field, that would be a true innovation. But one thing which Unni presented, very nice talk, the pricing of those cameras, Indian made cameras, it's again, as I said, it's a tipping point. You will have more and more low price, low cost cameras available in India soon. That would be very useful.
Just to add, Raja, I think that Trinetra, now what they're having is initially only fundus photography. Now they are coming with FFA as well. I think it's, if I remember correctly, somewhere around 10 or 11 lakh is coming up. Previously 3.54 it was there. But we added FFA. I don't have personal experience with this combined FFA and fundus photo, but I think that can be a reasonably option. Of course, ICG won't be there in that.
Remedio is coming out with more innovations, and they do have capability to do a little bit more wide field. So I think in future, we are going to have a lot more cheaper versions of Indian-made cameras available. And for somebody who wants to have a workhorse, fundus camera to document retinal pathology, not really wide field, like macular pathology, like what Raja was telling, for your routine diabetic retinopathy, vein occlusions, CSR and AMD, any of these Indian-made cameras like the Remedio or the Trinetra with FA capability, they do quite well, and they're good, good investment, and really not high on your pocket. And as you go up higher and higher, it depends on what's the kind of practice you are in. And if you take optos and things like that, then that's really for quite a high volume hospital or a practice where it's going to cut down. You can do non-mydriatic optos imaging and don't dilate many of the patients. So this is like wide spectrum. It all depends on what is the practice that you're going to do and what's the need. So that defines basically what you're going to buy ultimately.
Also, Murli, to add on to that is that you see your printout also should be very fast and good, because printout is your passport, because that the patient is going to carry that printout to all the places and show a photo. Sometimes I see a photograph which I can't see much, so I have to repeat a color photograph. So then patient start doubting, sir, kal to karaya tha ye. So that becomes very difficult to tackle those things.
I just wanted to add one thing.
Yeah, please.
This is about what Unni has shown. Edon he has shown. I think you get the best non-mydriatic, and the cataract people really like it, and you get the best image of posterior pole. And this is a true color. I could not imagine that through a small pupil you could get that good a picture. And he has also shown the angiography and the wide field capability, because it is relatively cheaper than whatever the other cameras are, which we were having in the institute.
Mangat, now a lot of small people, cameras are available. In fact, a lot of people do not dilate, even in retina practice. I have seen people, they do not dilate any of the eye. Only small people, big photograph, at least 160 or something. In fact, when on my recent visit to one of these Saudi countries, With the we do not dilate at all, even retina practice. We just take one
No,
small
it's
pupil for
you are right. You are right, Lalit. It is happening in our own center where I am. Now we have a lot of these bigger volume cataract surgeons. They are so happy because they can pick up these retinal things before and through the small pupil. That's what I am telling. The capabilities are there, and they give very good images of the posterior pole. That's where they can catch many of the things, especially in the aging population.
I think we must move on because there are 4 talks still remaining.
We should move on. So is Dr. Manoj ready or
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, fine.
Is
Okay,
it visible?
Yeah, it's visible. Can you make it full screen, sir?
Okay. Yes, it is visible now.
Yes, it's visible. You're audible. You can continue, sir.
Thanks to AIOS Scientific Committee for giving me the opportunity to speak here today. I will be speaking on which microscope is right for me. Maybe I am a beginner or upgrading one. So before buying a microscope, one should have a checklist what it should constitute, whether you are a first-time buyer as a beginner or you are upgrading, so that you know that what experiment you have already done and what mistakes you have done while buying the first machine. Then you should understand what others are saying in the all talks, the budget. The aim of the budget expenditure here should be that you should have a good product at reasonably low cost, and we will see how it is possible. Then you should have a good space. Otherwise, you cannot buy a big microscope in a small operation theater. And one more thing which should be considered, that it should be sturdy, durable, and easily upgradable. So that once you bought, it should give you the service at least 10 to 15 years. The reputation of the company should be seen. It should years together in this area should be seen, particularly in cases of microscope. We know that the many whom from you are buying matters more, whether you are buying directly from the company or a distributor, because many good companies microscopes distributors keeps on changing, and after sales service is a problem. Then maintenance after sales is very important. Then resale value should be there. Those microscopes which are highly reputed will obviously give you the resale value. I will tell you in the next subsequent slides. And one more thing one should remember while buying the microscope, that inquire users and who mainly the company who is ready to give the demo is very important in this area, particularly because this is an individual experience varies. If I say Zeiss is good, another person is very happy with the Leica, third person is very happy with the other company. So the different opinions is the role in this area. That's why demo of that microscope matters. Instead of going into the specific companies, we should know that there are so many companies and there are various models available in the microscope. There are basic models, then little bit upgraded standard models, and advanced models. So before buying, you should know that whether what things clinically apply in your practice, whether you are, as Unni said, that you are a passionate surgeon or a passionate medical retina person or a passionate anterior segment and want to upgrade a little bit doing the retina practice. In that situation, you should know that what is your basic requirement. If you are passionate, that means you are staying 7 to 8 hours in the theater every day. So your love is with the microscope and operation theater. So if you are in a solo practice or a group practice, or if it is a combined practice, anterior, posterior, that also matters before buying. And if it is a single specialty or combined, budget, space, whether it is a space is own or rental. If it is a rental, he may not be allowing you to do the alterations. And if it is a second floor, third floor, many a microscope, higher end microscope, you cannot carry on the second floor or third floor. You have to do so much of the alterations, breakages, and all those. These are the good company microscope available in the market. We will see that instead of going into the company names, I will see that there are varieties of basic to middle range and higher range microscope in the market with variable prices. For vitreoretina practice particularly, we require reasonably good microscope which is having some specific characteristics. What characteristics are important while going for the vitreoretina practice is that it should have a very adjustable ergonomic features like tiltable binoculars, motorized zoom, XY, and focusing is must particularly whichever the company you are buying, these things should be seen first. And this microscope head is the very important component of this system. Then rest of the things are stand and all those. Another thing which one should see is that how much is the focusing distance, whether it should have a little more operating space between the microscope and the eye. Then another thing that there should be an adjustable light illumination, adjustable focus, which speed can be changed according to the surgeon's need, and zoom can be changed very fast or slow, as well as the XY also, and there should be a wide range of XY. Then another thing is that this is my Lumira eye microscope. You can have assistant scope, depth of focus, which you can see here, which is very important for red reflex, and it is very myth that red reflex is not required in the VR practice. Many VR surgeons are now doing the combined surgeries where the red reflex matters, the anterior vitrectomy also, and the complications of the anterior segment surgeries where the red reflex does matter more. Then you should see that there is a tiltable binocular to minimize the musculoskeletal strain on the surgeon's neck and back. We know that many vitreoretinal surgeons have stopped practices at the age of 55 to 58 years because of the musculoskeletal problems, neck problems, or back problems. There should be a C-mount and beam splitter for camera and assistant scope, slot to mount any inverter or viewing system. Otherwise, you will have to do the breakage and drilling into the bottom of the microscope. That should not happen. No learning curve should be there. While you are taken the microscope, immediately you should have a wow effect. Otherwise, you will have a learning curve and you will have upsets most of the times. The microscope preferably should have a programmable wireless put switch so that there is no wiring in the theater, and that causes lots of dirtiness or problem of hygiene. Then objective lens should be having the focal length of 175 to 200 millimeters, and this is a microscope which can have a good recording system like 4K microscope. This is a camera. Beam splitter is there. You can see that this is the inverter tube which is attached. Then assistant microscope should be there if you are in a teaching institute, or if you want to show it to someone. Then any type of inverter and the biome system should be adaptable to the end microscope. And most important thing that the microscope should have a tiltable binoculars. Otherwise, you cannot do the prolonged surgeries, or you will have once upon a time, once in the future, the neck problems will be there and you yourself will be the patient. Then other things is the optics. We know that this is the soul of any microscope, and most of the time we should see that apochromatic optics should be there. And there are advantages of apochromatic optics is that there is no optical aberrations and best quality at a low light. These apochromatic lenses, everyone in India also, those who are manufacturing, they claim that they are having apochromatic, but we really doubt whether they are there, and we don't have any access to see that whether it is there or not. Then you should see that whether there is a red reflex and field of view is also more in few cases or not. Then this red reflex, you can see this is very important, particularly in all combined cases, and that gives you the good clean job. Then light source is one of the important aspect of any microscope, and you should opt for a safe and easily replaceable and easily available light source, as well as you should have always and one spare bulb always there should be. Otherwise, this and easily operable to the technicians. Otherwise, you have to descrub most of the time and come out and change the bulb. That's why one spare bulb is very important. And life of the bulb and recurring is the one of the recurring cost. And you should see that the microscope should have a gradually increasing intensity so that bulb shorts very less times. And patient and surgeon comfort is very important in cases which type of light source you are using. In cases nowadays we are doing the topical cases, the discomfort should be taken into account. And if you are doing a prolonged surgeries for the surgeon also, the light should not cause a discomfort. So that there should be a various filter options. Mainly there the light sources are either xenon, LED or halogen. I personally prefer xenon light. But many people have used to with the halogen. Then the field of view is very important, depth of view is very important, red reflex and all other should be in your view and should be very clear. Here you can see the field of view is very important without causing the distortion of the images. Here you can see that the inferior optics is down and you are working on the injected cartridge system, and every whole situation is under your control because of the good quality microscope having the field of view as well as a good depth of view, and with patiently you can do the surgery because of this clarity which is given to you by this system. Then in the vitreoretinal also you can see that field of view as well as depth of view matters. Here you can see that in a single glance you should be able to see from the retrolental space or from eyeball till the disc and from the disc to the aura. Here you can see that you are doing the dissection up to the periphery and every whole field is in view. Same thing here after the correction you can see that the whole view, you can see that from the lens, haptic up to the disc and the periphery is visible and your mistakes are minimized because of the good clarity of the microscope. And here also you can see the red reflex. Then there are certain situations. Microscope should be such that any situation can come, and if you are thrilling or passionate VR surgeon, then you can't reject such cases, or these cases are bombarded on you by the referral doctors that I am not able to do. Then these ergonomics of the microscope, ergonomics of the OT table, as well as the ergonomics which affect the surgeon should be taken care, and you should suggest such a microscope that such any such situation you should be the microscope should be adjustable, and you should be able to do the surgery in given situation. Then you should see that there are certain things about the light source. It should be easily changeable, whether it is direct or fiber optic, which again reduces the intensity. Then floor mounting or ceiling, depending upon the space constraints are there. And as already we have seen that the recite or the biome should be mounted universally. Then basic to higher end microscopes, there are all available in the market. If you are a beginner or just upgrading, then see to that it is upgradable to red reflex. Intraop OCT is future, 3D heads up is the future, which should be upgradable, or you can attach to that microscope or combine it. Then biome compatibility and wireless foot switch is also important. And there are so many things which are coming even in a near future. We don't know how much a microscope we are using. If the robotic surgeries will come, then hardly there is any role of microscope. Then going for a good microscope, it is a not fancy item. Everyone was discussing about the return on investment. But here we should understand that this investment is not for the patients only. It is investment on yourself. You are going to suffer if you are not having good microscope.
Manoj, we'll have to finish, Dr. Manoj.
Yes, these are the things. But the visualization in the ophthalmology has been changed from couching to these were the days where many of you are knowing that the intracapsular surgery we were doing under these lights, and from there is so many developments happen into the field of microscope or visualization. Here I will just show that the theater should be bigger size, and your ergonomics does matter in this one. Your neck and back matters, and whole thing should be under your visibility. There are so many microscope. If you are going to buy it the best of the best. How to buy a best microscope at low price? There are so many cost constraints, but take a middle path from the beginning. Instead of spending much more money on the newer one, go for the resale one. From the demo stock, you can go for the demo stock, as well as different defer payment options also many companies are giving, or buyback option also they are giving. My Lumira is almost 18 years old. Now I am getting buyback option more than what was the purchase price. And then best surgical hands can't perform without good microscope. Seeing is believing, and giving best results and click fast marketing in the market of the small places. Right things should be done at right thing. That's what I have learned from Lalit Verma sir, that you should go for the best things at the early stages. Otherwise, चने आए तो दांत नहीं है, दांत है तो चने नहीं, ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए. And not to forget that you are investing for yourself and you are enjoying most of the time. So in conclusion, many companies in the market are there, Indian or imported. So many options are also available. You should be choosy beginners to see that what best for him, and in respect of space, solo or group practice, first or second generation you are in the practice. If you are second generation, then straight away you go for the best microscope. Then budget has several options, particularly if you are not able to do the good surgery, then your results will not be good. Your surgical time will be more, and then you will be in a depression state. The best policy is to take a demo. Decide one model won't suit everyone. Be aware of withdrawals of the few models in the market because of the problems occurs. There were some problems in the light, some problems in the dust, some problems in the distributors, or there were so many. So before going for anything, better you know what is the golden standard in the optics. If the optics comes, which is the comes, which if it is vitrectomy, which is the best one, and take opinion from your seniors and go for the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Manoj. I'll quickly ask Abhishek to come in over here. These fantastic videos that Sir showed, this is going to help go a long way in getting young surgeons to decide on which microscope. Abhishek, can you tell us, because you have excellent experience with a variety of microscopes.
Piyush, can we finish on all these talks of surgery together so that then we have time rather than having talks, because I do not want there may be some overlaps also in these talks.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. So just one question, sir.
Sure.
Dr. Abhishek, you have experience with a variety of microscopes, and if you can quickly summarize your experience with all these different companies. You'll have to unmute yourself, Dr. And just summarize so that we can move on to the next talk.
Yes, so Dr. Manoj actually rightly pointed out, microscope is something that requires very infrequent service. So, you should basically go for a second-hand microscope is absolutely fine, provided the optics are great. Now, always look at the prices compared to the features of the microscope. I mean, Zeiss is there, Leica is there, Moller Riddle is there. All of the three have excellent options, and all of them are biome compatible, VR compatible. So you really don't, have too much of a problem selecting between them. Between the Indian microscopes and the, the imported, the foreign microscopes, I would definitely edge over, because the chromatic aberrations and the field of view is a little less, the XY is a little less smooth as compared to the others. So, this is, in microscope, you should not compromise, because these are things that affect you on a everyday basis in every single case. You'll be cursing yourself in every single case if you have a problem with this. So you should always go for the best possible microscope. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Dr. Abhishek, I invite you to put up your presentation next. This is the second hot topic of the day for surgical retina surgeons. So Dr. Abhishek will be speaking on vitrectomy systems.
So I think my slides are visible now?
Yes, sir.
Great. So basically, I'll be talking about the vitrectomy systems now. There are several in the market, and I will be focusing on 6 systems. That is, 3 are imported, 3 are Indian manufactured ones. If somebody has a question about the other ones, you can ask me about the other ones also, the ones that I have not mentioned. So a disclaimer, nobody pays me anything for any of these machines, unfortunately. So how do you decide? When you are buying a vitrectomy machine, there are several things that you have to keep in mind. The first and foremost is, of course, the cutting. You're buying a machine for the vitrectomy performance. So the cutting is number one. The second is the fluidics, on how well and how stably you can control and perform functions inside the eye. Of course, your comfort comes paramount, because unless you are comfortable, you are not going to be doing great surgery. For those scenarios where you plan to do combined surgery, or phaco is also an important part of your practice, then a combined machine is one that has a good phaco is also very important. The purchase cost is important, but also important are the recurring costs, or the consumable costs, and the service costs, and of course, the expected role of your machine. Is it going to be your primary go-to machine, or is it going to be a secondary machine, as a backup or for infected cases? Now, we'll go through the functions of the machine one by one. Let me come first to the vitrectomy function, that is the cutting or the cutter. You should know what the cut rate of your machines is, and of course, going for the machine that has the highest cut rate is obviously more sensible. Nowadays, I mean, it's proven beyond doubt that the TDC or the twin cutting technology is superior. And now, even Alcon has jumped onto the bandwagon. Ertley and Dork were already there on this for almost 10 years now. So I think all your machines should be compatible with TDC. There's no point buying a machine that is not compatible. The cutter ergonomics and comfort is important. A lot of these cutters, some of the machines, they vibrate in your hand. It's a little uncomfortable if you're doing long surgery. And, certain machines have small cutters. The area where you hold is quite small. It becomes difficult in eyes that have a, deep or sunken orbit. Your machine should support 20, 23, 25, and 27 gauge. That is the current standard now. You cannot really have a machine that does not do support all the gauges properly. Also, it's a big advantage if your machine can support cutters from other makes. For example, if your machine can support, say, a cutter from Alcon, a cutter from Dork, or even say a mid-lapse cutter, it's a great thing to have, because then you're not limited in your choices. You can buy whatever is comfortable and cheaper for you. Also, most machines have a pressurized gas supply. Some have an inbuilt compressor. Inbuilt compressor is an advantage, but this is not a deal breaker. And of course, if you're going to use multiple cutters, you should have a changeable PSI setting on your machine. So now, how do they fare? So I'm going to compare the Alcon Constellation, the Dork EVA or EVA Nexus, the Ertley OS4. These are the three imported machines I'm going to compare. And the Indian machines are the Reticare, Apasami Turbo Orbit, and the Kenya Hope. These are the main machines. If somebody wants to ask me questions about Opticon and Goider, they're welcome after the talk. Now, as far as cut rate is concerned, Alcon does a fantastic job now with their hyperwidth. It was lagging behind the machines earlier. As far as the ergonomics and comfort is concerned, at higher cut rates, it does give you a fair bit of vibration in your hand. So I will not say it's that great. As far as versatility concerned, lowest marks here, because you can only use the Alcon Constellation cutter. You cannot use any other make cutters with this particular machine. For the Dork EVA, you have absolutely fantastic cut rates. It goes up to 16,000 cut rates. Ergonomics are absolutely fine. Probably among all the machines, this has the minimum vibration in your hand. As far as the versatility is concerned, you can use mid-lap cutter with this machine. Along with the Dork cutters, you don't need to stick on to one company. As far as OS4 is concerned, again, cut rate is excellent, goes up to 20,000. Cutter ergonomics are a little less. There is a lot of vibration in your hand, which sometimes does make it a little uncomfortable. And again, versatility, it's not very versatile. You cannot use other machine cutters, other make cutters on this particular machine. The Indian machines are great. All of them have absolutely fantastic cut rates. Their cutter ergonomics leave a little, more to be desired. There is a little bit of vibration, but as far as versatility is concerned, Reticare, Apasami Turbo, and the Kenya Hope, they have options of using any machine's cutter on them. They have adjustable PSI, which is fantastic. The Apasami Turbos, the cutter ergonomics and comfort is a little less than the other Indian machines, but overall the Indian machines do very well. Coming out of the next very important part, that is fluidics. Fluidics consists of inflow and outflow. Does your machine have a gas force infusion, and does this gas force infusion use filtered air? That is very important. A real-time IOP monitoring, is it possible in your machine? That contributes to the stability of the intraocular milieu. And is there IOP compensation? These three things have to be looked at. In the outflow, does your machine offer only a Venturi pump, or is there a peristaltic and a Venturi offered both? Does your machine have a vacuum rise and flow control? They're very important, because usually in a Venturi system, which most vitrectomy systems are, you cannot control the vacuum rise rate or the flow control, but there are machines that have this. The Dork and the OS4, the Ertley machines have it, and that is a very, very useful function to control turbulence in the periphery. And of course, the duty cycle. Does your machine, when the cut rates rise and when you go on to higher cut rates, is the duty cycle suffering, and is the egress of fluid from the eye reducing? This is something that is very important. If you look at the inflow and outflow, because the Constellation does very good on the inflow, I've given it half a star less, because in certain circumstances the IOP compensation creates a lot of turbulence inside the eye. The outflow is fantastic. However, there is no mechanism of flow control or vacuum rise rates control here. The Dork Nexus has these, and that's why it's a fantastic machine with a very good stable milieu. So does the Ertley OS4. The Reticare machine has a decent inflow. Sometimes the air inflow when you're doing a fluid exchange does lead to hypotony, but overall it's good. The outflow is less controlled. It does not have a IOP compensation mechanism or a outflow compensation mechanism. Now the Appasamy Turbo, and of course it has a cassette that sometimes can leak and cause a loss of vacuum. Appasamy Turbo, the inflow is pretty bad. You have a lot of hypotony happening. When I've used this machine quite a bit, you have to be careful, and you have to have it in the back of your mind that if I use high flow rates, I will have a hypotony. Outflow is about the same. The Kenya Mob is a new machine. It has IOP compensation. It's probably the only Indian machine that has IOP monitoring and IOP compensation. So it gets more mass on the inflow. The outflow is also quite good. The outflow does have a bit of a control, but it does not have a vacuum rise or a flow rate control. Coming on to the next part, that is the machine. What it does is that indoor illumination. You need to know whether your machine has a LED source, a xenon source, or a halogen source. Of course, the lifetime of the source is very important. The delivery, what is the variety of probes that you get? Do you get a wide angle? Do you have a shielded probe? That matters because that improves your comfort during surgery. Does it have just a single port, or does it have two ports where you can use a chandelier, or in case of an emergency, switch from one fuse bulb to the other source? That is important. And is it a tunable? Now there are machines that have a tunable light source where you can change the wavelength. All this is important. So when you go for an Alcon Constellation, the delivery, the light pipe is quite good. It does not have a shielded light pipe, but otherwise the light pipe is quite good. The worst thing about it is the life. You have 400 hours in that xenon lamp available. After that, you have to change it, and it's a huge expenditure. It's better to buy a separate light source rather than change the bulb. And it has two ports, so it has dual. It does not have multiple color options, but we rarely use those. So the Torque E1 XS has, again, the most fantastic thing about their light pipe is the shielded delivery, which prevents any glare coming onto your eyes. The life, it's a LED source, so they say about 20 to 25,000 hours. That is probably the life of the machine. And again, it has two ports and no color adjustment. The Earthly machine has a fairly decent delivery system, and again, a 25 to 40,000 hours of life. And it has two ports of light, and one of them is tunable. So if you want to have a fancy color, say a red free or a green lighting, you can do that with this machine. The Reticare machine has decent delivery. All the three Indian machines can use light pipes from any of the previous three suppliers, Alcon, Torque, or Earthly. They just have to have an adapter. Their life, again, they are LED sources, so their life is very long. 60,000 hours is the claim that the Indian manufacturers make. And only 1 point less in Kenya, that it has a single port, so using a chandelier may be a little tough. It's an optional thing. You have to pay more to get a second port. What about the foot pedal? See, the whole experience of using a vitative machine hugely hinges on how comfortable you are with the foot pedal and what all you can do with the foot pedal. So it's a very important determining factor. Of course, I would love to have it Bluetooth, not wired, because the number of wires become less. I would also have to have a number of functions available so that I am less reliant on my OT assistant. Of course, it has to be programmable. If there are 3 surgeons, each of them can have it to their own programming. That's a big advantage. A beautiful function that some of the lights foot switches have is that along with the vitrectomy function, they also function as laser foot switch. So that is one less foot switch under your table and lesser space. And of course, the intuitive placement of functions on the foot switch matters a lot. Now, I'll come to the ratings of the machines. Of course, the footprint matters in places where you have smaller OTs. So the Alcon Constellation, the Reticare, and the Kenya machine have a smaller foot switch. They fit on top of your table and don't create too much of a space problems. The other 3 machines, the EVA, the OS4, and the TurboVit, need a huge space. They are a separate, trolley by themselves. What are the other functions that you need to look at? Of course, the emergency features, the power loss feature. Let's suppose somebody carelessly yanks out the power source. What happens to your machine then? And once you restore power, how much time does it take to come back to function? And let's suppose the software, these machines runs on software, Windows software. If there is a software glitch, how can you bypass it and still save your eye and not have a hypotony and a collapse? So these are, again, features that you need to look at. Of course, the other features for people who carry their machine to multiple centers, portability is an important feature. The viscous fluid injection is almost the same in all the machines, so I have not given it too much weightage. So how do these fare? So the foot switch of Alcon Constellation is the same as that was used on the Accurus. It's a very rugged system, and water falls on it, nothing happens. And only problem with it is that it has lesser features than I would want. So the versatility is a little less. The footprint of the machine is not that great, and it has a fantastic feature that it is an inbuilt battery. So if the power goes off, the machine still continues to function. The problem is that if there is a software glitch, then you cannot, switch it off and switch it on, and it takes a huge time to prime the machine and make it come back to function if it went off for whatever reason. Now, the Dork EVA has a fantastic foot switch, the best foot switch. The same foot switch is also used on the Cube Pro machine and on certain other machines. It all comes from a single manufacturer in Germany. A fantastic foot switch. Footprint is a little more than certain other machines. And the other functions, it does not have a power recovery, and it also takes a long time to prime once it goes off. So that is something that you need to be careful about. Now, OS4 has a very clunky foot switch and has a very non-intuitive placement of foot switches. So you need to be very conscious, and a part of your mind is always diverted there. So I give it the least marks. The footprint is it's not a very huge footprint, but manageable. And as far as the other functions are concerned, it has a very decent power on mechanism. The minute you switch it on from off, you can start. You don't need the extensive priming for it. The Retiker machine and the Apasami and the Kenya, all three have a very similar foot switch design with 4 buttons and a central thing. A little clunky, not the best, but doable. Manageable. They have small footprints, especially the Kenya and the Retiker machines. They can actually be packed in a suitcase and carried wherever. And Retiker and Apasami Turbo, again, they are quick on machines, but only problem is that if the machine power goes off, the fluid or the air supply into your eye does not continue, leading to a collapse. The Kenya has a continuous fluid and an airflow going on, even if the machine, if the power goes off. So you have time, breathing space to recover the case. Then comes the big question of consumables. Does your machine give it in packs or separate? And now that the Alcon is giving only, not even a single pack, they're giving you 6 packs. So that becomes a huge cost. If you have separate, say, trocars, light pipes, cutters available, that is a big advantage. What choices do you have? Are there multiple types of cutters, multiple types of light pipes available? That is an important thing. What is the longevity? Because in India, the packages that we offer are quite low, and you want your instrument to function at least 5-6 times. So the longevity is important, reusability is important. So for reusability also, the ability to clean it properly before you are able to reuse it is very, very important. A complicated cassette makes it difficult. And of course, the cost of the pack, that is important. Now, also is important the cost of the system, what you pay upfront, and what is the built-in warranty. Most Indian companies offer extended warranties, and they're very good at servicing the machine. And what are the payment options? Does the machine vendor give you deferred payment options? Do they bundle it? That is something that is important to you in your decision making. All the other speakers before me have said this, and I say it even more, that service support is very important. How prompt is your vendor giving you service? Of course, is there a downtime assurance? I always, when I talk to machine vendors, I ask them for a downtime assurance that if my machine goes bad and you're taking time, will you be able to provide me with a backup system so that my work can continue? So downtime assurance is very important. The cost of CMC is also very important. And is your machine capable of being serviced by a third party? That is also very important, because otherwise you're stuck with the same company, and sometimes it leads to exorbitant costs and spendings. So for these 3 things, how do they fare? Alcon Constellation consumables are costly, and they don't give it to you separately. You have to buy a pack, and not even 1 pack. You have to buy 6 packs. So for individual practices, for institute it's fine, but for individual practices, it's a little difficult. The cost of the machine is on the higher side, and the advantage is that they do offer some bundling with the IOLs, and their service support is quite great. Even though the cost is high, the service support is quite good. Dork EVA Nexus, the consumables, the cost is less. Yeah, so this is my second last slide. So the consumable cost is less. There's no bundling option available as of now. and their service support currently leaves a lot to be desired. OS4 consumable cost is very high, even higher than Constellation. Even though things are available separately, the cost and the bundling options are also quite limited. Cost is high, bundling options are limited, service support is good. For the Indian machines, the consumables are very cheap. You can buy and you use whatever you want to. You want to use Alcon, you use Alcon. You want to use Midlabs, you can use that. And their service support is amazing. They provide you with a replacement machine the minute you want it. So that all the three Indian machines fare quite well, even though the original consumables of Apasami are not that great, but you can use the other consumables. So now how do you decide? Of course, decide what function. Is this your primary machine? Then you want the best in the cuttings and the fluidics. I mean, are you comfortable? Have you used it earlier? If you're, I've skipped the slide of FACO in the interest of time, but certain things about FACO are also important. And of course, the in your practice, what is your purchase cost, and is the role of the machine justify the cost and the service? So these are things that you need to be looking at. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abhishek Kothari, for this excellent presentation discussing in depth about the different parameters that one should look at when purchasing a machine. Now, we would want to get the take of seniors, especially surgeons like Dr. Pramod Bhende on this, but perhaps we can move on to the talk, and the moment we finish our talks, we'll discuss these important questions and our expert panel's opinion. So with that, I invite Dr. Saumil Sheth to please load his presentation. He'll be speaking to us about visualizing and inverting systems. Dr. Saumil Sheth hails from Mumbai. He's a high-volume surgeon and with experience on working on different visualization systems. Over to you, Dr. Saumil.
Yeah. Hi, Piyush. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you, Piyush and AIOS for giving me this opportunity. So my topic is an overview of the wide-angle viewing systems, and I'm using the tagline of LV Prasad so that all may see all. Now, this is half a picture. See how the story completely changes when you see the full picture. Similarly, in this one, the same applies. The perspective changes when you take the angle a little bit wider, or perhaps look at things from a different angle altogether. So the crux of my presentation is that you should see as far as the eye can see inside the eye. Now, I'm going into a very simplified way of presenting optics. This is the human eye. Any ray projected from the retina going through the converging optics becomes parallel. The first simple plano concave lens that you put on the eye makes the lens go divergent because it's -15 as against +60. So it reduces the converging power. You backtrace it, and this is where the image is formed, which is virtual and upright. If you backtrace that, then it gives you a 20 degrees field of view. As against that, you typically have the 30 diopter lens, which forms a real inverted image in front of the eye at a focal length of 3.3 centimeters. You backtrace the same, it is going to converge at a point which is more anterior to this, and you take that backwards, it is going to give a larger field as against this 20 degrees versus 51 degrees. So taking cue from that, we come to our first wide angle viewing system, which is a converging lens, which is separated from the eye. This is a non-contact system. 130 diopters as against 30 diopters. It is going to give you a very small focal length. So the image is going to be formed here. And when you backtrace it, the small focal length allows it to be backtraced over a larger area, giving you a much wider field of view, 105 degrees as against 51 degrees. So this brings us to our first set of systems, which are the non-contact systems, not coming in contact with the cornea. And this is the lens that I was talking about. The second group of systems is the contact wide angle systems, and the optics work the combination of the two. So you have, instead of a 130, you now have a 150 diopter. So it is a much more converging lens. The focal length initially was greater than 6 millimeters. Here it's lesser than 6. You backtrace it, it's going to converge somewhere in the anterior part of the eye. And when you backtrace it further, it is actually going to give you a much wider field. You see the magnification is much lesser than a non-contact, but I have written the same value, 105 degrees as I did for the non-contact. And why did I do that? Because the lens diameter here is 18 millimeters as against 20 millimeters that I wrote for the non-contact system. Now, this is important here. Lens diameter into the diopters or reciprocal of the focal length gives you the actual field of the view. Imagine this first situation when you have a 19mm lens and you have a 130 diopter. This part of the lens where the rays are supposed to go from the far out periphery of the retina are not going to pass through the lens. You're not going to be able to see that. As against this, you increase the diameter of the lens to 21mm, keeping power the same, and you're going to see that 105 degrees. The third situation is when you have the same diameter as originally, but you're increasing the converging power from 130 to 140 or probably 150, you're going to converge it more anterior to the previous focus. And if you backtrace that, you're going to get a wider field. The field only suffers because you have a lesser diameter. So if I compare all the wide angle systems, I'm not really going into the details. I'm going to go into the principles because that is what matters. And we save a lot of conversation on brand naming. So basically you have this system, 19 diameter lens, 130 refractive power, 102 viewing angle. You have slightly increased diameter with the same refractive power, giving you a slightly larger viewing angle, a much larger refractive power with a much smaller diameter, giving you the same approximate degrees. So this contact lens is non-contact lens. And if you have to keep arguing, more or less they fall in the same range of maybe 100 to 120 degrees. But we are not concerned with seeing 105 to 120 degrees. We actually want to see much more. We want to see about 175, probably 80 degrees, see the ora serrata, see the pars plana, and so on. So any wide angle viewing system, even if you put it in a 4 mm pupil, it will show you 75 degrees of the fundus. What if you make it into 8 millimeters? Automatically, it is any wide angle viewing system is going to show you 85 degrees. So one thing what we've achieved by simple dilatation of the pupil, more field of view. The second principle, bring the lens closer. That 85 degrees is going to become 95 degrees. And the principle is very simple. This ray here was going outside. You bring this lens closer to the cornea, the same ray will be intercepted by the periphery of the lens. And from 95, it will go to 105 with the same diameter and the same dioptric power. So in non-contact, definitely you can bring the lens closer. As you see here, from 5 millimeters, if you bring the lens closer to 3, the field of view automatically increases by 5 or 10 odd degrees. As against that, contact lens, there is a fixed distance and you can't really change that. The third important aspect, which I just discussed, you increase the diameter or the dioptric power of the lens and you increase the field of view. As what I said, you take the best of both. You take a larger diameter and you take a more dioptric power and you are going to get a wider field of view. But what happens if you take too thick a lens? Your optics are going to suffer because of some chromatic or spherical aberrations at the periphery. And if you take too large a diameter, how will your instruments pass through from the side if you're so near to the cornea? Let's say you go slightly away from the cornea. This 21 millimeters you take slightly away. What happens is the ray will pass outside the field and you're left with nothing. And if you have a contact lens system that becomes big enough or large enough, it is just going to tumble off the eye. So there's a certain degree to which you can restrict the field of view by increasing the diameter or dioptric power. There are other ways where you can do it better. You tilt the eye so as to see 135 degrees. Here you can see way beyond the anterior margin of the breaks where you can do vitrectomy simply by tilting the eye. Furthermore, in an aphakic eye, you can see probably 145 degrees, as what you see here is practically ora serrata. This is a aphakic eye with a lens drop. You fill the eye with air and you can see way beyond the ora serrata onto the pars plana over here. And the last important thing is probably depressing, wherein in this case, you are able to see not only the pars plana, even pars ciliaris, depending on how well you depress. So the bottom line being, you can definitely do good on the lens diameter and the dioptric power, but that contributes probably to only about 105 to 120 odd degrees. Whereas if you go still into other maneuvers, you probably get a much wider field of view. The more important aspects being tilting the lens, filling the eye with air, or probably going for a depression. So there is so much of hue and cry over the viewing angle of all these different brands that more or less they play around 100 to 120 degrees. There is no point when it's more like a show off between the lenses, when probably the ideal thing or the ideal lens system to go for is non-contact, because with that, you can achieve a tilt, which is going to achieve a higher field of view, and probably even depress the eye, which you can't do with a contact lens without having the lens stumble over beyond a certain degree. Secondly, in a contact lens, you are definitely always assistant dependent as against non-contact where you are assistant independent, though you are microscope dependent. Having highlighted the advantages of non-contact system, why we go on to the next important aspect, which we've discussed so many times in these talks, is a dire need to economize the non-contact wide-angle viewing systems. And yes, you do look at returns on investment without affecting the surgical result. Problem with surgical result is that a lot depends on the inherent limitations of the retina by way of scar atrophy or ischemia. You may have the best of equipment, best of wide angle system, and this is very often the kind of vision that the patient lands up with. So let me try to see whether I can make it into a budget sort of an assembly with a wide angle viewing system. There are two components. One is an inverter and the second is a biome attachment with the biome. Technically, a normal imported inverter with an imported biome will cost you 3.5 lakhs. This is 10 lakhs. This is an approximation again. You change the imported inverter into an Indian one or a locally made one. I'll not name the company. You straight away bring the cost down from 3.5 lakhs to 1.5 lakhs. You save 2 lakhs over there. This is not compromising really much on the visual quality. The biome attachment with biome still remains 10 lakhs. So what you do next is take a locally made biome. It is around 4 lakhs instead of 10 lakhs. And you brought your cost down from this 10 lakhs with an imported biome to 4 lakhs with a locally made biome. So practically, when you sum this up, you've gone less than half of what the imported assembly would cost. Now, if you want to really go attachment free or use a contact lens system, and in which situation would you go attachment free? If you're operating from one place to the next where you're not dependent on the microscope. And secondly, if your microscope has a very light stand that cannot sustain the heavy assembly of a non-contact system, you have to buy minimum 2 contact lenses. One would be a wide angle and the other would be a macula. Each would cost 75,000-ish along with a handle, and along with, I've not put the salary of the assistant here. Probably you can account for that as well. So that 4 lakhs has now changed into 1.5 lakhs, 75,000 each for wide angle and macula lens. So now I brought the total cost down to practically 3 lakhs. But this is still a contact lens, a wide angle system. How can I make it into a non-contact? Because I really do not want to be assistant dependent. I'm not accounting for the assistant costs here. And non-contact definitely has more advantage in terms of tilting the eye and depressing without the lens tumbling over. So I apply what typically people apply is the great Indian jugaad. And what I do is I take a biome attachment, I get it locally made from a local vendor, approximately 25,000. You have this very disposable biomes available, which are plasticky. They will not really last long, but the cost is really less. It is probably 25,000. And the biggest limitation of this more than the plasticky assembly is the fact that this lens, the focus lens that you really use is a plasticky lens and it is prone to scratches. So you take that one as the original, probably 1.5 lakhs odd. The rest you take from a local vendor and you take a plastic biome. And this cost is probably brought down to around 1.5. So if you take this as the original lens, you have changed this contact wide angle system into a biome system or a non-contact system without really compromising much on the cost. The last bit is if you still want to live attachment free, you want complete microscope independence, even assistant independence, you need to look at this lens system, which is Payman vessel lander system, which is not attached to the microscope. It is attached to a separate assembly that comes out from the head support, goes into the eye, non-contact with the cornea. You can easily tilt the eye and you can even depress without the lens tumbling over. More importantly, this does not employ an inverter. So one single assembly is going to cost you much lesser than the 2 assemblies combined together. So my take-home message for the wide-angle viewing system is wide field of view is more or less the same in all wide-angle viewing systems. You really do not need to fight over it or break your head over it. More important aspects are tilt, depress, and air filling, which are better. They give you better field of view or they are view expanders. Aberration and optics component is also the same in all wide angle viewing systems. And in my experience, I found the locally made ones, Indians, to be almost the same as imported. That I think I would mention Dr. Raja's comment here that India is on the verge of a tipping point, and probably hear it where it begins. Though contact lens systems give slightly better resolution due to lesser interfaces, but this is hardly any difference. I would still prefer a non-contact system as it is assistant independent and you can tilt and depress at will. In the order of economy, I would prefer to use local biome. In the order of economy, as in from the costly to the cheaper ones, local biome goes on to disposable imported biome along with a non-disposable focal lens, which is imported again, and a locally made biome attachment. And the last being the PWL system. With this, I would like to conclude my presentation. In whatever I have preached, I have also practiced. This was my major OT, which initially had an assembly of imported microscope, imported inverter, and an imported biome. Now my major OT looks somewhat like this. The same imported microscope, imported inverter, and the imported biome has shifted to my ancillary OT, and this has been replaced by an Indian microscope, an Indian inverter, and an Indian biome with the two lenses, which probably does give me the same result as the imported one. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr.
Soumil. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Come on.
I think you've made things very easy for most people to, decide what they would want to do in their practices. Now, we will take questions, but perhaps after the last talk. Now, one additional point I would want to add, you spoke about the PWL lens. Our next speaker, Dr. Raju, yes. So Dr. Raju Sampangi from Bangalore, even though he'll be speaking to us on recording systems, which amongst the people who are at the forefront, he is at the forefront regarding a comparison of different systems. He also designed a PWL modification in the past. So perhaps if any viewers would want to talk about that, you can talk about that to Dr. Raju as well later. So please begin your presentation, Dr. Raju.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Piyush. You got the order of the presentation right. When it comes to the order in this talk, the recording system is the last thing in somebody's mind when you're starting your practice. And the photograph here is the photograph of the wide angle view that you got from a PWL lens. And I developed an adapter which can be attached to the microscope. And this is the view that you get with the PWL lens. To continue with my presentation. Yeah, so we just got a small survey. Most of the surgeons, retinal surgeons, are attached to anterior-segment surgeons, and they have a recording system in place, but most of them are not happy with that. But when we ask them what is the maximum budget they are ready to spend for a surgical recording system, most of them are not ready to spend more than 5 lakhs. And what surgeons expect is when they want a recording system is they want something like fill it, shut it, and forget it, like the Hero Honda we had before. And they want the system at the least expense, but it should do all the work. But that is not possible. When it comes to recording anterior segment surgeries, it's like a piece of cake or a child's play. Most cameras do well. But when it comes to shooting retinal videos, you have different gauge of surgery with different amount of light, and endolight that we use during surgery also changes position with respect to the procedure that we are doing. So as you can see here, as soon as I take the light close to the retina, there's a blooming and you're not able to see clearly. And also the reflectivity of the tissue. As you can see here, once the tissue is removed, then the retinal view improves. So there are so many factors when it comes to doing the retinal surgery. And also the view under air. Again, you need a camera which can manage all these varying aspects of the light and the viewing systems that are in place. So what kind of cameras that you require? You require a camera that should have a good low light sensitivity, high signal to noise ratio, and a broad dynamic range. As you can see here, this is a video that is shot on a camera, which has got a good low light sensitivity. This room is only lit with a candle. Just by altering the settings of the camera, you're able to see more and more and more without changing anything else. This whole room is just lit by a camera. So what you require is a camera with a good low light sensitivity, high signal to noise ratio, and a broad dynamic range. What it means is you have a view here wherein you have a bright lit building, and you also have a moon that is here, which is in the dark. So the camera should be able to pick up both the dark areas as well as the light areas. That camera would be a broad dynamic range. Let's see how you can start it. So let us make it simple. So what you can do is go and buy any of these systems that are commercially available. Ikegami or the Sony are the most commonly used recording systems. And for recording retinal surgeries, you require a 3-chip camera. The single chip cameras will not be able to handle all the things that I mentioned previously. But if you get a code for these systems, they tend out to be too costly. 3-chip camera with adapter and the camera may cost somewhere between 12 to 15 lakhs. And you need to spend additional 5 lakhs for the original recorder to record the videos. So this will set you back you may not be able to buy a car immediately if you have to spend on these recording systems. And if you want a 4K camera, you may not have to buy a luxury car. So if you do the cost benefit analysis, is it really worth it? Well, definitely no. It will leave your pockets empty and you'll get a heartburn. So is there a need to have an affordable recording system? Definitely, many of us have good surgical skills, but we'll not be able to showcase these skills because we cannot afford the recording systems. So we cannot afford, then we need to think outside the box. If necessity is the mother of invention, then frustration is the father of creativity. This is what happened to me when I started to have the wide angle viewing systems for which I built a microscope adapter. I wanted to showcase how good they are. So that's when we started to see whether commercial mirrorless cameras can match medical grade cameras. I would like to acknowledge my friend Sumit Kanduja here. He was the first one to use the Sony A7S cameras for retinal surgery. We not only did it, but we also validated it. And I would like to acknowledge Dr. Mangat sir, Dogra sir, who asked us to validate it, and we published our results. So when we try to compare, let us show you the videos of various cameras shot on various systems. So this is the anti-segment view. This is the posterior segment view of the video number 1. This shot on camera number 1. Then this is the second camera showing the ILM peeling. This is the camera number 3. And this is the retinal view with this camera. And this is the last one. So when we did the comparison, you can see most of these cameras did equally well, especially the video 2, 3, and 4. And if you see where they were shot, the first video was shot on the Zeiss Callisto, which is an integrated camera available on the Lumira 700. It will cost you additional 15 lakhs to have this camera, which is nothing but an Ikegami camera there. And the second video, I would acknowledge the courtesy of Dr. Vishal Agarwal from Jaipur. This was shot on a standard 3-chip Sony camera. And this was shot on a Sony high definition camera. What the video number 3 I showed you was shot on a Sony mirrorless camera. And I'll show you a few more videos of the same. Here you can see that I'm showing you a technique of proportional reflex using the cutter. And this is the video that we were able to shoot with the Sony A7S II cameras. So we published our work on recording system on the IJO, and this was also acknowledged in the survey of ophthalmology, work on recording systems. So to create great videos, you not only should know about the hardware, but also you should understand the various camera settings. When it comes to the hardware, what you require is a beam splitter, a camera adapter, and the camera. This is all that is required for our system, and the recording happens internally into the chip. Great photos are not produced by costly cameras, but by good photographers who know how to use it. So just before you start recording, make sure that you do the correct focusing so that the whatever you record is focused and is in the center of the field. Then again, depending on the type of the surgery that you perform, whether it's an anterior or posterior, we need to individualize the settings for our setup, and most of the times it's a one-time adjustment. The camera settings like the shutter speed, aperture, and the sensitivity or the ISO should be known. And of this, most important is the ISO. That is the amount, that is the sensitivity of the camera to the light. So you need to adjust this when you are recording your surgeries. So with our camera, this is Sony camera, this is the kind of inter-segment videos that you can shoot. You get very excellent camera, excellent quality recording. And even if you zoom, this is shot just in HD quality. And even if you zoom, you will be able to get all the details very clearly if you're focused it well. This is another video showing the epiretinal membrane peeling. You can very clearly see how crisp the quality of the recording is. And for all practical purposes, I think we can match the medical grade cameras. There are some limitations, especially with respect to the recording time, which was there in older cameras, but the newer cameras don't have this recording time limit. The battery time is one thing that you need to take care, and changing the camera settings. However, what we have done with the new adapter is to add the aperture. So instead of changing the ISO settings, one can change the aperture, and then we can, without having to fiddle with the camera settings, we can change this aperture and record beautiful videos. I'll just show you how it is. This is the video recording showing the retinal detachment surgery being performed. And here you see now, when we are trying to do the periphery, because the light is very close, there is a blooming that is happening. And just by changing the aperture, we are able to adjust the light that is entering the camera, and we can shoot quite a good quality recording by adjusting the aperture. Because the depth of focus is good, you are able to see even if you zoom it, there is no loss of the video quality when we are recording on these cameras. So what I can say is the system recording with the mirrorless cameras is versatile. It gives you excellent quality, and it is very cost effective. And to set it up, actually it takes very less time. All you need to do is to have a attachment to fix it to the beam splitter. Take the camera there. And just attach it, and you are ready to record your surgeries. That's all it takes to record time to set up the system. So it's easy to set up, easy to change the settings compared to the medical grade cameras. Continuous recording is now possible with the Sony A7 S3, and you can just record it on this micro disk and then transfer it to your laptop, and you're done with it. So thank you very much for your time. A penny saved is penny earned. So this system, you will be able to built or put together at less than 4 lakh rupees. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for this excellent presentation. We will just take a few comments for our expert panel now. Is Dr. Pramod Bhende, sir, there?
Yes, I'm there.
So would you like to make some comments on the last 3 lectures, that is the vitrectomy machines, visualization and inverting systems, and the subsequent recording system?
Actually, I think all of them have really covered very well. I mean, let me congratulate them. And I think, see, the problem, issue is same basically, but your budget, your setup, your space availability. But I think everybody has covered extremely well. I mean, isolated points you can add on. Only thing is what I wanted to talk about this wide angle visualization system. One thing people need to understand is basically what he was talking about, tilt. Tilting the eye to get a peripheral view, but also we need to, most important, understand when you tilt it, your surgical field reduces. Instead of circle, you are looking at an oval. So if sometimes we get carried away and you try to tilt too much, in fact, it reduces the surgical field and you lose your field significantly than keeping it straight. So yes, you need to tilt, but you have to be cautioned that subtle tilt is extremely important. No, not too much. Suddenly we want to go to 6 o'clock and roll the eyeball down, you lose entire upper part of field, and then you will get lost. So you have to be careful.
Thank you, sir. So any of the other panels, expert panels, Professor Dogra, sir, Muralidhar, sir, Vatsal Parekh, sir, Agnihotri, sir?
Anand wants to say something.
Yeah, I'd just like to add excellent talks by all 3 of them about the vitrectomy machines. I'd just like to add that Abhishek gave a great talk and he spoke up about DORC. I endorse that. I use both the Alcon Constellation as well as the Nexus from the DORC systems, and is doing a great job. The Nexus. It's just that with the Nexus, if your fluid bottle finishes in the middle of a surgery, especially with a number of surgeries, that priming takes a much longer time. Also, the IOP compensation is a little less robust and as it's not as good as the Constellation system, but it's definitely a faster vitrectomy system, and it just needs a little getting used to. On the other hand, I personally feel the ergonomics of the Alcon is a little better in my hands. I find the DORC port, the cutter is a little bulkier, therefore probably not as great economically. But importantly, DORC has now been bought up by Zeiss. So over the next 6 months, we have to see how the channels of procurement is going to be. It may be for the better. We hope so. Yeah.
Piyush, if I can add. I have just one comment. So like all the beginners and the little senior doctors to have is that do have a backup, because we are operating in such atmosphere where anything can happen anytime. So we must plan that we must have a backup system. And the backup system may not be the top end system. It could be one of the things which you can depend on in emergencies. Because you cannot just say the patient that, okay, we have finished half vitrectomy and I'll do the rest next time. So probably that's the only message I would like to convey, that everything should have a backup. All your disposables should have a backup. It should not be that you open a pack and you find something not working, some trocar not working. So it should
only
not
the surgical part, only the surgical parts.
Only
the medical
equipment. Yeah, so equipment wise, you have to have backup. Lalit, I have always realized that I
No, I agree. I 100% agree. We always fight for this.
Yeah. I have.
Piyush, if I can add. Sir would like to say something.
But I think Piyush, if time is running
Yes,
out,
it is quite
but I must conclude. I must conclude by just saying that half an hour overshooting was, I think, worth it. And it was such a vast subject,
very large.
such a vast subject, and believe me, all the 8 talks individual webinar could have been done. Such a vast subject, and so much hard work has gone into it. But suffice to say, I think all of us, whosoever is starting or upgrading, couple of important words were there. Let's see your own setup, budget, ROI, and all these things. But very important is, which Raja said and Prashant also said, that look for service policy, very, very important before you invest, and backup is very, very significant. But I think 2 things are very important is no compromise on microscope and veterinary machine and viewing system. You see other things like OCT, Octa, lasers, maybe, thoda you can. But, seeing whatever we can see, we can do. Anybody. So therefore, microscope, viewing system, and veterinary machine, you cannot afford to. So therefore, maximum investment, I think, which was told by Abhishek also, has to be done on these things.
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent.
So I think with also this YouTube is available for people who want to go back and see what hard work Unni has done, or Abhishek has done, Raju has done, and everybody. In fact, they have done a lot of hard work, and it's worth visiting YouTube again whenever, and you can refer it to other colleagues who have missed out on this. So with this, I will thank the AIOS scientific chairperson and Piyush and Gopal, who have really worked hard on this. And needless to say, talks were excellent, and all the panelists, were well utilized. Must I say, excellent job done.
Absolutely.
So
Thank
you very much, and see you
very
again.
much.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Clap for them. No?
Thank you,
So
everyone.
hats off to all the speakers,
Let's clap.
Piyush and Gopal Pillai. Thank you so much.
And it's
Bye-bye.
good night, everybody. Have a nice.
Good night.
Bye.
Great job. Great job.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
And thanks to the support system. We have.
Thanks to Mr. Sunil, actually.
Sunil,
He
absolutely.
speaks less, but he's done a great job.
Forget thanking them.
Lastly, thank you, Lalit Verma sir, for being there throughout, in spite of his busy schedule. He just got home and
It was a pleasure. I told you this worth time spending. Thank you so
Wonderful.
much.
Great.
Sir has that pen also, pen and notebook also.
Yeah. This pen is here.
Okay, Gopal. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Lalit.
and speakers.
Bye,
Thank you
Piyush.
for being there.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Good
Really
night.
nice seeing you, Gopal, Unni, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.